What's up, everyone, and welcome to All Elite Nerds, the Metalcore Nerd Show where we talk about all elite wrestling. I am your host, Sean Mott, and today we have a very, very special panel. Very thankful for all these guys joining me. First off, I have my friend Brendan, longtime friend. Actually met him at a wrestling show, so it is perfectly fit for this. How you doing, my man?
Good, buddy. Good. What more perfect place could we be with a meeting like that?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And another person who I met through music, which is a very pivotal part of this podcast, but then later went to a ton of wrestling shows with him, and now he shoots the damn shows. Shoots GCW, a bunch of other shows. GCW being obviously the one people probably know the most. But Zach Warner, what's going on, man?
How's it going, man? Thank you for having me on.
Not a problem. Happy to have you here. One before I get to our last guest, we're in a wrestling group chat that's been going on for a long time now, so this is perfect for this. But our last, but certainly not least guest, we have Liam Crowley from the Direct podcast. He also writes for Wrestling Inc. What's going on, man? Thank you so much for being here.
Sean, thanks for having me. This has been a long time coming. We've been negotiating over the DMs for so long in terms of lining up our schedules, but man, I'm so glad to be here. When you reached out about Revolution, immediately after I finished watching it, I was like, yeah, this is a show I want to talk about. So stoked to be here.
It was a good one. It was a very, very good one. AEW's been on a hot streak with these pay-per-views and just the company in general. But a little thing I like to do on the podcast before we get into the main topic is I want to talk about what you guys have been watching lately. My favorite thing I've been added is a new segment in the show. I call it Now Watching. So we're just gonna go around the table and we'll talk about what everyone's been watching lately. So Brendan, hit me with it. What have you been watching?
Wrestling wise, just the company we're about to spend the next hour or so chatting up.
I don't even mean wrestling wise. I just mean in general.
Outside of that world?
In general. Yeah.
It's a lot. Unfortunately, through the pandemic, it's been a lot of rewatching stuff. You know, things I've seen a million times, but it's like it's comfort. You know, I mean, waiting for Ted Lasso to come back. That's really the only joy. But yeah, it's a lot of just rewatching, man. Just trying to find that little bit of comfort in the last 2 years of non-comfort.
That's completely understandable. Zach, what have you been watching?
Mostly wrestling, just a little bit of everything there. Apparently going to start Euphoria, I believe, tonight. I keep hearing really good things about that, so that's a rabbit hole I'm about to fall down. Other than that, not too much. Like Brendan said, a lot of rewatching. Just recently rewatched Sons of Anarchy for the umpteenth time. Show never gets old.
Damn. I do love that show. And Liam, our list might be a little longer than theirs. Just for the pure scope of the things we do in the podcast realm, you more so than me. But what have you been watching? I'm scared of this list.
Well, it's weird to say for work because these are shows I would be watching regardless.
Yeah.
But Peacemaker, Boba Fett, very stoked for Moon Knight. In the wrestling world, mostly AEW these days. That's really the only appointment weekly wrestling television there is. I catch Raw and SmackDown on clips and occasionally NXT as well. I have been going in YouTube rabbit holes of just like old Ring of Honor as just inspired by the recent news and everything. And shout out GCW. It's hard to get YouTube clips of GCW stuff because it's mostly on Fight TV and all that. But occasionally I'll catch some like fan perspective entrances and stuff like that. And man, the atmosphere at GCW shows is something I'm just like salivating at the chance to be a part of one day. So hopefully we'll make my way out to Game Changer one day. But yeah, other than that, Euphoria as well. Euphoria was like the one show I watched on a weekly basis that was like no pressure to podcast, tweet, social react, just like purely for my own entertainment, which is such a relief because don't get me wrong, I love what I do, but it's also nice to have entertainment that is not any tied to work.
Right. That makes total sense. Yeah. Mostly of what I've been watching has been stuff I haven't really talked about other than in this segment. Sam and I have been really into Pam and Tommy, which is on Hulu, starring Sebastian Stan and Lily Allen, which has been honestly, it started off kind of funny in the beginning, which I guess most people could probably expect because Seth Rogen's in it and Nick Offerman's in it. But it turns into this really nice drama later on in the season. I think there's only a few episodes left, but that I highly recommend that. It's very, very good. and we've been watching How I Met Your Father, which is not amazing, but it's fine. It's like good mindless TV, which is it's kind of like what Brendan was saying. It's like nice for comfort and everything like that. So that's been like a nice watch. It's not terrible, but some of the jokes definitely aren't that funny, but it's still pretty good. It's funny because Sam wanted to watch it because she loves Hilary Duff, and she's never really watched How I Met Your Mother, and they don't really need. I mean, there's things that are connected, but it's not like forced connected. It's mostly it takes place in the same city, and then one of them has the same apartment, and that's really it. Other than that, I am wondering if we'll ever see any cameos from the OG cast or anything like that, but I'm really not expecting it. It's kind of a different vibe. Definitely kind of modernize it to what's going on now. And on the anime front, Attack on Titan's still going, and I love that show. It's my favorite anime. If anyone's into anime or not into anime, it's probably like the most adult anime there is. I call it the Game of Thrones of anime because it's very much that. It's crazy exposition, crazy dialogue. There's the most plot twists you've ever seen in a show, probably ever. There's been about a plot twist almost every episode of this last season, so it's wild. I would highly recommend that above all. And then for wrestling, it's all AEW. We'll get more into this once we get later down, but CM Punk is the reason I got back into wrestling. I was huge into wrestling when I was younger. I loved the Hardy Boys, Shawn Michaels, DX, all the classics and everything like that. And then I just stopped because I started playing guitar and skateboarding and whatever, being a teenager. And then I am straight edge personally, so I heard, oh, there's a straight edge wrestler, and I watched a documentary, and then immediately after that I started watching. And then our friend Maddie, actually, after he found out that I started watching wrestling again, who was in a group chat with us two, Brendan and Zach, he's like, oh, you should check out Ring of Honor, you should check out New Japan, you should check out PWG. And then we started going to all these local shows in our area, which is funny enough because Liam's in Syracuse going to school there, but we have seen pretty much all the people you see in AEW in American Legion halls, like numerous times.
It's crazy
like
to think about.
I've seen the Young Bucks wrestle so many times, and it's crazy to say.
I'm pretty sure we got to see
places.
We got to see one of the first North American Meltzer drivers in a bingo hall in Binghamton, New York.
Yeah, dude, it's
when they came out to Hanson.
One of our friends got to hold the IWGP title from AJ Styles in a broken down hockey rink. 2 miles from my house.
Was it in Rome?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
When the Young Bucks had
I only went to one show there.
Yeah.
Everybody was there to see Matt Hardy, and the Young Bucks are like, well, that's cool, I guess.
Yeah,
my one claim to this conversation is I saw Darby Allin at a Evolve show in Melrose, Massachusetts, 2019, a couple months before he had that singles match with Cody. And anytime I see him on TV these days, I'm like, how did I see him in a bingo hall? Like, that's like, he's my product. You know
I mean, that's how it is now
yeah.
with Garcia. Like, I shot his 4th ever match.
That's so crazy.
He was opening in a tag team with a couple Canadian dudes, and now he's like the top young guy. And it's just like, that's so crazy to see that evolution.
Yeah. And the fact that he got in a almost life-ending car crash a few years ago.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that he's even wrestling is insane. And he's doing the stuff he's doing is even crazier. And I love seeing upstate people like get love. Like, I just knew he was an upstate dude because friends is like, I know Kevin Blackwood, and we used to play shows together and see each other at shows and everything like that. And once I saw him started wrestling and kind of moving up, and him and Garcia are kind of intertwined at this point. And
I could see him making his way there a little more now. He's getting that PWG, that New Japan Strong, all those West Coast shows now that he moved out there. So
moving out there was huge for him, for sure.
Yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me to see him on there sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, we caught the Young Bucks like as they were blowing up hard, as like the Bullet Club became like a real thing in North America. Because when I saw them, I went to see the Dudley Boys wrestle. I didn't go to see the Young Bucks. I saw them wrestle the Dudley Boys because I was like, oh, the Dudley Boys are wrestling down the street from my apartment. This is crazy. And then I saw them and I was like, and then I saw Johnny Gargano, Candice LeRae on the same show. And I was like, yo, these guys are fucking awesome. Like, hell yeah. And, you know, then it just snowballed into what it is today. It's like by the time AEW was the thing, I was already following all those people. So it was just perfect. I was like, oh, I'm watching that now. And I was kind of getting over NXT at that point. That's when, in my opinion, NXT was kind of just recycling too many things. Because it's so funny because so many people are like, oh, Adam Cole's doing the same thing he did in NXT. And I was like, really? They just copied what he did in the Indies, which is what NXT did a lot, which is fine. It's totally fine. I used to love the stuff NXT did, but they also did a ton of stuff they didn't do in the Indies. Like Gargano and Ciampa never teamed in the Indies, not like they did in NXT. And like they did a bunch of really cool stuff. It's just kind of a shame to see what it is now. No offense to anyone who likes it. It's just definitely not for me anymore. Especially, I watched a little bit of 2.0 once and I was like, I can't do this.
Nope.
I cannot do this. But, you know, it is what it is. Everyone's likes what they like. No shame on anyone else to what they like. It's just there's so much little free time in most people's lives, and I like to spend it watching stuff I generally have fun watching. So that's why I pick AEW over anything nowadays. And I know there's a ton of amazing wrestling elsewhere. It's just like I don't have the time to watch it. Everyone's like, yeah, you know, GCW, and I'm like, cool. I see stuff on the internet. I'm like, yeah, it looks sick. Like that looks amazing. And I was like, but am I going to spend whatever to watch it on Fight and on a Friday night when I'm probably doing something else? Like, probably not. You know. And
no, if I hear something, I'll seek it out, but I'm not going to dedicate, you know, again, like I said, 2 hours to an NXT, 3 to a Raw, 4 to a New Japan show at 2 a.m. anymore.
Crazy.
Years ago, maybe.
Now
it's if it's something good and I hear about it, I'll check it out. But no.
Yeah. Speaking of new wrestling that all of us might end up watching and probably will end up watching, Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor. Wild. Everyone was speculating on what his news would be. People thought he bought the tape library. People thought it was a streaming deal. And it was way bigger than I think anyone anticipated. Like even Sean Ross Sapp was like the day of it was like, I really don't know what it is. And it seemed like it was a surprise to a lot of people that are even involved in the company at all, which is kind of wild, but it's cool to see. And I listened to the post pay-per-view scrum, and a lot of people obviously had Ring of Honor questions. He didn't really answer any of them. Not directly anyway. He mostly just said, I'm going to be the booker. I can't really go into any details of what it's going to be. So he did kind of hint at that it might be their NXT almost. He asked questions to the people in the media people, and it was kind of saying like it's supposed to be how NXT was in the beginning. That kind of feel and vibe, which makes total sense. But I wanted to ask you guys, are you excited for this? What do you think he's going to do with Ring of Honor? Obviously, the tape library doesn't really need to be talked about. It's obviously massive. It has a ton of, or if not half of the roster of the beginnings of their careers and a lot of big moments in their careers. But Liam, let's go to you first. What do you think is going to happen with Ring of Honor?
I do think it'll be treated like developmental, but I hope it still has its own identity in that sense. Like NXT, even when NXT was at its peak, it still felt like a subsidiary of WWE. Ring of Honor shouldn't feel like NXT to WWE as they would to AEW. I think if it felt like Evolve, I think that would be the best case scenario, because Evolve was at one point kind of like a feeder system for WWE. They'd send guys down. Basically. I used to see the Street Profits wrestle at Evolve shows in Massachusetts when they were still contracted to WWE, but they weren't getting NXT TV time. So, hey, go cut your teeth down in this independent promotion we have a good relationship with. I think Ring of Honor would be best in that scenario. And then you can have guys who are on AEW proper go down, get a little bit more shine. A guy that's always just been coming to my mind this past week is Brian Pillman Jr. I think would flourish in a Ring of Honor type setting. He's not going to get TV time against, you know, the CM Punks and Bryan Danielsons on AEW Dynamite every week, but he could look like a giant shark in a small pond in a Ring of Honor setting. And then the last thing I'll say is I really hope they have a small and intimate environment for it. I miss NXT Full Sail so much. That crowd was so hot and so organic and so punk rock. And if they can replicate that for Ring of Honor, you know, you're not going to get the Hammerstein every week, but you could get the Hammerstein 4 times a year for these special events. And even though it only has a capacity of 3,000 to 5,000 people, it's still going to feel like a massive, massive deal when those come around. And then on a weekly basis, you can still run out of Florida. You can still run out of places in Nashville, Tennessee, smaller venue, punk rock fan base. And I think you're golden.
Yeah, they do have a relationship with Universal now, where they've been doing Dark and Elevation there. I could see them doing some Ring of Honor stuff there, possibly. That'd be kind of cool. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. I do hope it still has that Ring of Honor feel. It's just I've seen a few people be like, "Oh, I don't want to see people cross over and then have them do like a crossover pay-per-view or kind of event thing a couple times a year." It's just I feel like it's such a waste. Like all wrestling besides WWE is everyone showing up everywhere. Why would you not do that of something where Tony Khan owns both of them? Like, it would make zero sense. And it's great for even like Brian Pillman Jr. is a perfect example, but even people like Daniel Garcia, if he's not involved in this faction that we're going to talk about later, or, even like Brian Cage, they just re-signed. Like, I heard rumblings of Brian Cage versus John Gresham is going to happen. And like, that would be awesome. Like, and that's a perfect utilization of Cage. It's like everyone's saying like they can't sign everyone. It's like at this point, I think they might be able to, because they can spread them out through two completely different companies. I guess the biggest thing is I'm interested to see where it lands TV wise, because he definitely shied away from where do you still have a relationship with Sinclair with the broadcasting side, and people are wondering, oh, is this everyone pretty much the writing's on the walls that they're going to sign a deal with HBO Max. Like, it makes total sense. Warner owns HBO Max. They have the TV deals with AEW. Makes perfect sense. Why would they go to some other streaming service? It wouldn't make any sense at all. It's just kind of what does that entail? Does that just entail old AEW and old Ring of Honor stuff? Does it include pay-per-views? Does Ring of Honor become HBO Max's NXT, where it's like it's HBO Max exclusive and it shows there weekly? Because I kind of love that about NXT. Kind of when it went to TV and it had become a 2-hour thing, that's when it kind of lost part of its luster. But Zach, what do you think about TK buying ROH?
I really like it, and kind of building off what Liam said, I kind of hope they keep it that Ring of Honor is its own entity, that it's not AEW's Ring of Honor. Like, right. It'll be cool to be seeing a match and all of a sudden, what's so-and-so from AEW here? Or almost treating it how they do with Impact or other promotions. Keep the titles the way they are. I love watching some of the ROH Pure matches because it's something so unique and different, but also being able to utilize it as a developmental without it being under the AEW banner. And I feel like that's how Tony's going to lean. The whole contracts with it, though, is going to be interesting. Like, is everybody going to be on an AEW contract? Is it going to be a Ring of Honor contract? I know, for example, this past weekend I was talking to LSG because he was at the ESW show. And he's like, people have been coming up to me, congratulating me. We don't know anything yet. So that's still kind of up in the air. Is Ring of Honor still going to have its own contracts? Is it all going to be under one banner? It's going to be very interesting to see the route Tony takes with it. But I have faith because he's given us no reason not to.
Yeah, that's very true. And it is even more interesting because, as we saw in this pay-per-view, Shane Strickland got signed and he's on the Supercard of Honor show. And everyone was kind of like, it was reported that he was going to sign with AEW. And then he was announced in the Ring of Honor show. And everyone's like, well, that's kind of wild. Like, why is that happening? And it's like, now it obviously makes perfect sense. But it goes to your point. It's like, are they going to be AEW or are they going to be Ring of Honor? Or is it going to be kind of a thing where it doesn't really matter, but some people will be Ring of Honor people and some people will be AEW people? Brendan, what's your thoughts on this?
Just to kind of pick up right where you guys just left off with ROH, there are no contracted talent at all. The last contracts expired in March. So, I mean, Tony's got a fresh board to work with. And I think the thing that stuck out to me in the press releases was that Tony bought it. AEW didn't buy it.
Right.
So I think he's going to keep it as its own kind of side thing, like Liam was saying, and maybe not up to the level of Dynamite or Rampage, but well above Dark and Dark Elevation, to where you might see some crossover, but it's going to give those, mid to lower tier guys like a Pillman, Griff Garrison, those guys who are good and should get some attention, that time to shine and continue to hone their craft. It's great. I think Punk said it best at the Scrum. It's there's no better person who could have bought the tape library than Tony Khan, because now they can make documentaries, they can make video packages going back 20 years for, again, half the roster. And when he goes to HBO, it's like, listen, I've got 3 years of my stuff, 4 shows, and now 20 years of this other company that highlights most of my guys. Who better? Like, just seeing Punk well up in that scrum and start to get teary-eyed, talking that he finally kind of has his career back, other than 2005 to 13 or whatever it was when he left. It was just awesome to see how emotional he got, that a guy he trusts now fully has his career to honor it. No pun intended. No better guy could have bought this company than Tony. And I like Zach said, why would I not have faith in him? 3 years now, he hasn't let us down once.
Yeah, true. It's like, it's not everyone's going to like everything in AEW, but like I said in the beginning, it's like I have fun watching it. And I can only imagine how impossible it is to try and book a quote unquote perfect like promotion. It's like impossible, but the pay-per-views he puts out, like, you can't deny it. Even stuff I wasn't even really excited for ended up delivering. So and especially these last 3 pay-per-views have all like, everyone's like, man, that's one of the best pay-per-views I've ever seen. And people say it after every pay-per-view. It's like, that's a big deal. They've like almost kind of superseded the takeover era, when the takeovers were like this kind of level.
Right. You knew what you were getting with a takeover. You're like, oh yeah, it's a takeover. Now you're like, oh, it's AEW.
Yeah.
It's like something ridiculous is going to happen.
Yeah. And I didn't think it would be Sting jumping off our rafters through 4 tables, but it happens, it happens. But yeah, to the card. So at this point to someone the other day is that Malachi Black has not had a main card pay-per-view match since he's been here, which is pretty wild. And that's kind of like a thing to the whole AEW roster. It's so stacked. There's some people who just can't be on everything. And every time he's wrestled, it's felt pretty important, which is a big testament to what Tony does. But I just want to know what's next. I don't even know if they're moving on from the whole, Death Triangle thing. Like, where do you think it's going, Zach?
It's definitely interesting. And to kind of start with what you said about that he hasn't been on a main show, I do want to point out, I kind of like that they make their pre-shows feel important. It doesn't feel like a pre-show. It's like this is just a taste of what you're about to see. Watch the main card. But in terms, I definitely don't think the Death Triangle stuff is done. I could see it veering off a little till Phoenix comes back, just because Eric Redbeard fit well, but it was almost kind of shoehorned in. I understand they need the third person to make it even. It definitely worked. I'm waiting to see if anything develops with Julia Hart, because there were a lot of the little subtle teases. I know in the chat I had sent the clip. She did a move, and when she landed, she did the sit just like Malachi Black. She's been having the attitude, the little bit of a dark turn. I really hope that doesn't just get forgotten about. But as a stable, I could see Malachi going after the TNT title. You let Brody and Buddy go after the tag titles. Julia maybe after the TBS title eventually, because that's definitely not a thing right now.
Yeah.
That wouldn't end well. But also
no.
with the expanding roster, with Ring of Honor and stuff, I don't necessarily want to say stick them there, but with Brody already being a Ring of Honor guy, why not? You could have some amazing things there, and just the tying in back and forth until that next big feud. The tag division's kind of crowded right now. I'm sure we'll get to that later at some point talking about the card, but I just don't want them to get lost in the shuffle, but they've put too much into it for that to happen.
Yeah, they still show up and have their important matches. It's kind of a bummer that the Cody thing happened the way it did, because obviously that was his introduction into the company, and there was that kind of whole weird thing with him and Andrade that they've kind of just dropped at this point. And I was kind of waiting to see how that played out, but I guess we never are going to, which is,
I feel like that's a trend
fine
with Cody lately, though. Just all these random one-offs, and then he's on to the next one, and then
he left the company.
Or did he?
I think he did. I think he did, but maybe not. I don't know. Everyone was joking when I was watching the pay-per-view with a group of friends. They're like, Cody's going to show up at the end for the Ring of Honor invasion. And I was like, God, I hope they don't do another invasion storyline. We do not need another invasion storyline. Please, no, stop it. We don't need it. Liam, what do you think about the House of Black? Where do you think they're going next?
I kind of have two ways to go about this. My head says that they will go for the tag titles. I think they're a perfect foil to Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, and honestly, I think they should take the titles off of them. I almost expected Red Dragon to pick up the straps at Revolution, but knowing how Tony books all of his title reigns, which is a good thing, they're always lengthy to a certain degree. We always get at least one big marquee defense, whether that be on a pay-per-view or a special edition of Dynamite. And this kind of felt like, okay, Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus will get the defense, and then Double or Nothing will come, and maybe we get more towards a title change. I think Kings of the Black Throne is a perfect tag team to foil Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, but at the same time, if we're looking at this like a stable, it makes more sense for Buddy and Brody to team and Malachi to be the singles wrestler. That said, though, Malachi and Brody are more of the established team. So I think you could go two ways with it. I think you could send Buddy after the TNT title and then Malachi and Brody after the tag titles. But what I want to see most is I want to see this thing go to the main event. I want to see Malachi win the world title. I think you have a really unique opportunity to do a modern day like Ministry of Darkness. I love when the spooky dudes are in control of the promotion.
Yes.
And I think the ceiling is the roof for this stable. And I just hope that they're beyond pre-show next pay-per-view. Because don't get me wrong, like you said, Zach, pre-show is still a big thing on these AEW pay-per-views. But, it still says it on all the articles. It still says it on all the match results pre-show. And I think that House of Black can only grow both in terms of their presence on the card and in terms of members, too. I think Julia Hart is a great shout. I'd love to see Pac join eventually. I know they teased it kind of briefly. And I think you just keep going from here.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And I think we're all ignoring the fact that Ty Conti confirmed that she was in after the match. You guys not notice that? I'm just kidding. That's what I thought, though. As soon as she came out, I was like, did she join the House of Black? No one told anyone. It's like they were saying it's like war paint or whatever, but it looked very close to what Malachi Black wears. So I was like,
I was slightly confused by that at first. I'm like,
I was like, did we miss something? Did we miss something here? Brendan, what do you think? Where do you think Malachi Black and company are heading towards next?
This is going to be where I might stray from the three of you fellas. I'm not normally a spooky guy myself. I'm probably one of the few who was like, American Badass wasn't bad. That was okay.
Shout out to Limp Bizkit.
Yeah. But
Kid
Malachi
Rock,
Black should be
not shout out to Kid Rock. Sorry.
Main event. He should be on the marquee. That dude's just way too talented to be on a buy-in, a pre-show. No matter where he's working. Same for Brody and Big Match Buddy. I don't know where they go. I think Liam was spot on, though, that that Buddy's going to go for the mid-card belt, and we're going to keep Malachi and Brody King together to go for the tag titles, and they're just going to run roughshod. Because there's really, other than trios, that's the thing. They're talking about trios titles, too. So when Kenny gets back, that's kind of looming. And that division's more exciting than some of the other stuff, I think, with the company, because they have a weird amount of trios teams for not having trios belts. But yeah, those three guys, they should be on main card. I think this pay-per-view kind of showed that some of the matches could have went to the buy-in and some should have been swapped to the main card, sadly. But it's all upside. Those three dudes are just so good that I can't not see them kind of take where they were in the other companies and take it to the next level.
Yeah, now that you mention Buddy going for the TNT title, give me him and Sammy yesterday. Because that would be a barn burner. I mean, I'm ready to see Buddy wrestle any of these dudes, and we only got like a sample of what we're gonna get, and I can't wait to see him just demolish some singles matches with the talent they have in AEW, because I don't think half these people he's never wrestled ever. You know what I mean? That's what I love about some of these people who kind of got almost like big in WWE and came over and were obviously highly underutilized, is that I can't wait to see them wrestle these dudes, because he's definitely a person who fits perfectly with the style of what AEW does and what the indies do. It's like, that's why I want Mustafa Ali like over here, or even Ricochet, which I know Ricochet just won the IC title, which good for that man. That dude deserves that.
Yeah.
He deserves more than that. But man, I'm just like, there's so many people Ricochet didn't even get to wrestle. And especially these young dudes that AEW's been building. Like, I would love to see Ricochet wrestle Jungle Boy or Darby, or, you know, or I'm sure it might have happened, maybe not. But probably not actually, but I would like, I would be amazing. It's just kind of a bummer, but we'll see if he stays there or if he. I have no idea what his contract is like. I know he's kind of like awful. Suck cool. And I was wondering if that would play into the match, which it didn't, which I'm kind of glad, because that match didn't need anyone getting in the middle of it. It was perfect the way it is. But Eddie Kingston finally won the big one. I love how he acted when he won. He's like, I won, like surprised that he won. I thought it was the right move. And also shout out to Chris Jericho for continuously putting over younger talent in AEW. He's done it almost, like, that dude's lost almost every feud he's been in. Like, honestly. Like, they've lost almost every feud, or lost a majority of it. He kind of got the upper hand in the Pinnacle, but he really lost to MJF almost every time, you know. And it's just, Chris Jericho's been killing it. So Brendan, since this is your idea, go at it with the resurgence of Jericho.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, though. This guy was brought in to be the cornerstone guy to get this new company off the ground. He's the face everyone knows, whether you were watching 20 years ago, 25 years ago. You know, Chris Jericho is a name. He's built that outside of the business through his music, through his podcast, different shows and stuff he's done. But the big thing I want to bring up, like you said, he's gotten in crazy shape. And I mean, he's a guy who will always like post like a workout picture or a video, but we also know he also will work out and then go drink a bottle of Grey Goose that night. And it's like, okay, well, you kind of negated yourself there. And I don't know, because the timeline I'm not 100% remembering clearly, but he kind of went off TV similar to when Mox did, when Mox went away to kind of get himself healthy and get himself right. So maybe he saw a guy who he's close with, realized he might have had an issue, and gotten himself clear, because look how great Mox looks now that he's not drinking anymore. And look at Jericho. He's lost probably 15, 20 pounds, and he's shredded at 50. So I'm thinking maybe he saw pictures of himself towards the end of that MJF feud where he looked bloated and gassed and his hair looked terrible. And he was like, I need to fix this and, you know, tighten up the diet, tighten up the workout regimen. But him and Kingston looked like a match you could have seen in 2001, you know, late 90s, mid 90s, All Japan. They just beat the shit out of each other. Jericho's doing top rope Hurricane Ranas. You know, I loved Eddie.
Pop-up Hurricane Rana at that. I was like, what the fuck? What did he just do?
Like you said, he's putting guys over. Because again, at 50, it's great that Sting's doing what he's doing at 62, but not everyone's going to be that lucky. I mean, Sting was, for the most part, lucky to get paralyzed 10 years ago. So it's great to see a guy who still wants to give back, even though, you know, he's made his millions. He's a star. He doesn't have to do any of this for anyone. He can just cash a paycheck and cruise. But he doesn't want to do that. He wants to put guys over. He wants to make the young talent important. And like you said, I'm glad Santana and Ortiz stayed away.
Yeah.
But what I love from this storyline was Eddie was like, all I've done is prop these guys up. You just kept them down for your muscle. And so it kind of played on Jericho could have been that superstar who held people down. But in reality, if you look at his win-loss, it's not good for the old man. But it was just great to see him work like he did when he was in his 20s and 30s last night. You know, didn't look tired, looked physically great, and just went out there and had a quick 13-minute, you know, punch the clock, beat the shit out of each other, punch back out. It was awesome.
Yeah, a lot of people are ranking it up as one of the best like AEW openers, and there's been some real good ones, including MJF and Darby.
It might be my match of the night. Like, it's, if not 1A, because those two kept it simple but told a hell of a story.
Yeah, it's hard to pick favorite match of this one because there is a lot of insanely amazing matches from this show. Liam, what is your thoughts on Jericho lately?
I'm not the biggest Jericho guy at the moment, but I will say he got some bonus points for me based on the results, because a lot of people were saying that, like, oh, no matter what, Jericho's still going to win, and they're going to further and delay Kingston's, you know, big pay-per-view win. I kind of went in with the mindset of there's no shot that Jericho comes out on top, right? And then the more I got in my head, I was like, who knows? Because you do mention he did put over MJF a lot during that feud, but unfortunately, I say this on my podcast all the time when we talk about like bad comic book movies, but the ending shot is really cool. Vince McMahon always says, you know, you can have a crappy pay-per-view, but if you have a strong finish, not even a strong main event, but the strong closing shot, that's all people remember at the end of the day. And all I remember from the MJF Jericho feud is Jericho beating MJF on pay-per-view after the match got restarted, and the Inner Circle coming in and celebrating with him while MJF was lying on the mat, defeated. And then that was when I was like, really, I was doing a lot of coverage on AEW. I went to the Arthur Ashe show and the Rochester show, and when I saw MJF in person, it felt more like he was desperately trying to get some wins back. Not that he actually gave off that vibe as a person, but as a character, I kind of felt like he lost a little bit of steam. And I don't know if Jericho needed to win that match. I think he only came out on top because they put the career on the line. And so with all that in mind, I wasn't too hot on Jericho lately, but I echo everything said about him getting into crazy shape. I echo everything said about him trying to make Eddie Kingston look like a star, because Eddie Kingston looked like a big deal after this match. Even though I was joking with my friends who I was watching with, I was like, you know, Jericho's in crazy good shape, and it's only making Eddie look that much worse, because when those straps came down, I was like, dude, whatever Jericho's doing in the gym, start to shadow him as well, because, you know, but that's kind of his vibe. You know, he's the
it is his vibe. Yeah,
it works for him. While Jericho, he's trying to be the washboard app rock star. Fall 2021 wasn't it for him. So at the end of the day, I thought it was a strong opener, and I think a lot of what you guys were saying about interference, I'm glad there was no interference, because we look at how the rest of this card played out. There were a lot of people coming in, playing those manager roles, the women's title match, the tag title match, the main event match. Starting things out with interference would have just felt like repetition. I'm glad this was a straight up one-on-one.
Yeah. Zach, anything else to add in the talk of Jericho?
I'm definitely along a lot of the same lines as Liam. Not the biggest Jericho fan, especially I find myself hypercritical of a lot of his promo stuff. I just feel it's gotten very cheesy. A lot of the lines you're just like, come on.
GFY.
Man, GFY.
GFY, dude. All right.
In terms of, I would say Eddie Kingston for a long while has been one of my favorites. You hand the man a microphone and it's gold. I mean, there's the couple months on BTE where there's always a skit of, hey, Eddie, cut a promo on this cookie. Yeah. And he did, and you're just like, this man is brilliant. Seeing him get the win, I loved it. And you went into it kind of like, this isn't going to be a technical masterpiece. This is just going to be two dudes beating the living shit out of each other. Yeah. And I mean, that Eddie Kingston's not a wrestler. He's a fighter from New York City. He's just going to beat your ass. I do like that. I think this was the catalyst for kind of breaking up the Inner Circle without having it have to be something huge.
Right.
Like, it's not like a huge, the stable's going to fight each other. Yeah, you had the tag match, but it wasn't anything huge. I'm interested to see the segment this week with Jericho refusing to shake his hand after he said he would, where they're going to go with that. Is it going to be, are we going to get like full heel Jericho at this point? Are we going to get Santana and Ortiz coming out just being like, hey, you lost, man up. Right. Do what you said you did. Is Swagger going to turn on him? Or Hager, sorry. Slipped into old WWE there.
It happens.
But I I'm glad that they used that as the opener, because if it had gone south and if it had been a lackluster match, there was enough to prop it up after.
Right.
But as hot as it came in, it just set the tone for the rest of the night.
Yeah, 100%. And then now we're getting into, I can't believe this match was second, but the tag team triple threat. And we talked about this tag team division. And that's like another thing. It's like we talked about Kings of the Black Throne possibly being the next tag team champs, but like Santana or Ortiz, like I want to see them hold those belts
now.
Top Flight.
They're okay because you can prolong that for like a long time. They're super.
I could see them being the Ring of Honor path.
Yeah, maybe that'd be cool too. You know, it's the Briscoes have those titles. I have a firm, total belief that it's going to be Briscoes versus FTR at Supercard of Honor. I just have a very big feeling that's what's going to happen.
I can say I have a very good feeling you're right.
Fair enough. I'll take that for what it's worth. But kind of Liam touched on this earlier. I did think going into this that Jungle Express were going to retain, because they have had, this is like their 4th or 5th title defense, but a lot of it has been on Rampage or not on Dynamite, which is obviously the flagship show. And I feel like they really needed a solid, huge defense, which obviously over these two teams is massive. Two of the best, most decorated tag teams in wrestling in recent memory. Like these dudes traded Ring of Honor and New Japan tag titles for years before Red Dragon ended up getting signed to NXT. So it was really cool to see them. And this match was exactly what I figured it would be. Total, absolutely insane spot fest in the best way possible. And it was, most importantly, I think, a showcase for Jungle Boy, which this dude is so young and he is so good. And I can't even imagine what he's going to be like in 5 years or even 2 years. Like, this dude is the future of this company. And that's why it's like, I'm never worried about like what's going to happen when these dudes get too old, because you have people like Darby, like Sammy, like Jungle Boy, and MJF. They're all super young, and they are just now getting into, I guess you'd call it like mainstream wrestling, because I haven't even heard of Sammy Guevara before AEW. And Darby Allin, I knew him because I saw the video of Ethan Page throwing him into a pole in the middle of a room. That's how I knew Darby Allin. I was like, that dude seems crazy. And I heard the name and everything like that. And Jungle Boy, I had no idea who he was. And it's so cool to see them get built up like massive, like huge, important parts of this company. And I do think they're probably going to lose their next big title defense, depending on who it is. I'm interested to see who they kind of determine ends up being the next big contender. Because like we said, there's a lot of, like FTR was on this card. You know what I mean? There's so many incredible tag teams that are out there. And there's another possible tag team that formed that we'll be talking about later. And if they end up being a tag team, I kind of see them being the next title holders. And it's like cool, but at the same time, it's like, man, there's so many other like actual tag teams. So we'll talk about that one a little later. But Liam, thoughts on this match? Where do you think we might see him go? Are you stoked on Jungle Express? Like, what are you feeling here?
Yeah, this was my match of the night. I'm just a sucker for these like 6 or not 6 man. Well, I guess it is 6 man, but 3 team tag team matches. They always start a little slow and methodical, and then the last 10 minutes is just a barn burner. This reminded me of my favorite NXT tag title matches from takeovers of old. The one that comes to mind, Bruiserweights versus Undisputed Era, DIY versus Revival. Like, this was right up there for me in terms of just how much was going on at once and how often individual wrestlers got to shine. Like, I can remember 3 different times Kyle O'Reilly stood out to me. I can remember 3 different times Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, Matt Jackson individually. Like, it's incredible how well they use the time allotted for these tag team matches. And I thought the storytelling was prime. It was the easiest story of all time. The trope of the 2 teams are aligning, but they both want to win at the end of the day. And even though they're both heels, they're eventually going to clash. But when they did clash, it felt like bitter. It felt genuine. It felt like there was like some meat behind those punches. And All the build up on Dynamite I thought was fantastic. I love when AEW does this, when they integrate one feud into the tag title division, and it all feels organic. Mox and Kingston going after the Young Bucks, even though they weren't really feuding with the Young Bucks. It was more just a storyline of Moxley has this new friend, and they're both against Kenny Omega, and those are Kenny Omega's friends. So now we're going to take their titles. That's what this felt like, but it's organic. It doesn't feel like Tony drew up a match card and was like, okay, well, we want all these guys on the show. Let's put them in a match together, like we often get at WrestleMania, giant multi-man matches just to get people on the card. This felt genuine. This felt organic. And as for what's next, like I said, I think Kings of the Black Throne are the next challengers. But like you said about Jungle Boy, man, he is incredible. For the longest time, I didn't get it. And then I saw him wrestle Adam Cole in person. And that's all I needed. He's unbelievable. And I will say something I noticed too about this match. He is legions more confident than when he started. It's very subtle.
Yeah.
It's very like he's not in your face. He's not like outwardly charismatic, but he almost seemed very shy in his first like 1 to 2 years on Dynamite. I'm like, dude, you're on TV. Like, this is exciting. Like, you know, like smile a little bit. Like, get some anger in those promos. I remember he had that one like world title match against Jericho, and I'm like, man, he's really showing how mismatched he is. Now, lately, you can tell getting that title gave him a surge of confidence, and he's showing it in just the smallest facial expressions. They're like, yeah, I know I'm good at this. Like, I love that. And I think he's going to be a major, major player for years to come, but I think he's also in a really good spot right now.
Yeah, 100%. Brandon, what are your thoughts on the Jungle Boy and the dinosaur?
I love these two. You know, the entrance coming up, he's on the shoulders, sets up the music. How can you not just enjoy seeing these two do what they do? I mean, like you said, Jungle Boy is so athletic and so young. And like Liam said, you can see him just growing in confidence every time they either have another big match or with the titles. And it just goes to show what Tony's doing. And I hate that we've done this a few times already versus what the guys across the street are doing, to where one's propping up these young guys who are 22, 23, 24 to be the future, while the other side of the street is the guys who are 40, 45, 50 are still your headliners and your big names and are holding down the other guys. You know, New Japan burned me out on these kind of 3-4 tag team matches because every pay-per-view, especially with their juniors, they do them, it feels like. And especially Young Bucks and Red Dragon. I've seen them quite a few times. Yeah. But every time when it's done, I'm like, shit, that was awesome. I tried to take notes for it, and maybe a minute and a half, and I was like, this is a waste of my time. I'm just going to watch this. You can't keep track of what they're doing. No. Red Dragon and the Bucks know each other so well that they can just put a match together and plug any other third team in there and make them look great. And then you add in the fact that you have one of the most athletic big men today in Luchasaurus going. I mean, no guy his size should be moving that way and doing kicks and strikes like that. And then Jungle Boy is just him, Sammy, Dante Martin, just the things those guys can do when they get in the air and they're just flying around it's beautiful. It's art. But yeah, these three teams put on one hell of a show. No other way to say it.
Yeah, they put on a great match, and exactly what you said. When they get in the air, I don't understand how it's physically possible, but the stuff they do is wild. And I've been in a wrestling ring, and I can't imagine even running the ropes because I recorded a music video in a wrestling ring, and that completely changed my perception of everything in wrestling. And that was just being in the ring, not even doing anything physical at all. I was just like, wow, this stuff is a lot harder than I thought it would be. But Zach, what are your thoughts on this?
I feel like I'm the only person that went into this expecting them to lose. I really thought we were going to get
a lot of people thought that.
I thought we were going to get Red Dragon stealing it, something like that. I've never been more glad to be wrong. As you guys have said, Jungle Boy has taken such big strides. It's great to see Brendan bringing up some of the stuff Luchasaurus can do. And the fact that I first heard of him when he was on a reality show.
He was on Big Brother.
He had done a season of Big Brother, and he had talked about being a wrestler. And I'm like, yeah, okay, this dude's a wrestler. And now I'm just like, holy shit.
That dude is a wrestler.
That dude's a wrestler. You're never going to get a bad match with the Bucks. You're not going to get a bad match with Red Dragon.
No. Kyle
O'Reilly is one of my favorite people to watch. Just the facial expressions he has.
He's the best.
He's just such a wonderful person. I'm in the same boat as you, Sean. I think the next big match they have is going to be where they drop it to who, I don't know. And unfortunately, I think then we're going to see more of the singles run for everybody, which could harm Luchasaurus.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if he's at the point where he can kind of stand on his own. But once again, as we've alluded to a bunch of times, that could be where Ring of Honor comes in.
Very true. Yeah, I oddly enough found out about Luchasaurus, which is where he got his name from, which was Lucha Underground, which I
forgot about that, actually.
The hell out of that show. It was so wacky and weird and awesome. And he came out and people chanted Luchasaurus, and that's how he got his name. Like, no joke. That is how it happened. He said it on the Chris Jericho podcast. And I had no idea that's how he got his name. I was like, yeah, I remember people chanting that. I don't even remember what his name was in Lucha Underground. It was some weird thing. He was part of this like snake tribe or reptile tribe or something, which weirdly enough, the leader of was Thunder Rosa in a mask. Super wild to see them at, like, Shane Strickland was in a mask in that company. So was Ricochet. He never talked. It was super crazy.
Jeff Cobb.
That promotion. Oh yeah, Jeff Cobb. Like he
was a murderer. He just broke people's backs and murdered them.
Yo Shirai was there. Chelsea Green. Like, Lucha Underground had a roster.
Yeah, John Morrison. Who else was there? Like at Brian Cage. Like everyone you can think of was there. It was like that's where Penta and Phoenix got like pretty much found, because after they started getting over there, they started going over in PWG and stuff like that. And that's how they got into like TNA or Impact. But yeah, like I remember I started to rewatch because they put the first season of Lucha Underground years ago on Netflix, and I started rewatching it. And I remember in the beginning, like seeing Penta not be over was the weirdest thing ever. But that's how it happened. He just eventually got over. And it was super hilarious because he was always the heel and Phoenix was always the babyface, and they never teamed in Lucha Underground. They were always bitter enemies. I never knew they were brothers or a tag team until they started teaming PWG. And I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of crazy. That's cool, though. But yeah, if you've never watched Lucha Underground, I suggest it. I never watched the last season, but the first two seasons are amazing. They're so sick. So wild. It's produced by Mark Burnett, who produced Survivor. Okay. So the wackiest storylines. There's a guy who's a dragon, a guy who's from outer space. Like, it's crazy. It's amazing.
And Helico jumping off the tallest things he could find multiple times.
Yeah, and then Helico is a face the whole time, which is wild. I was stoked when they came to AEW, and they've I know he's injured right now, but I'm kind of bummed how they've used them. But at the same time, it's hard. There's so many teams. like I don't know, but they had, and Helico was an awesome trios title team with Ivelisse, who was in AEW for like a tiny bit, and Matt Cross, who was Son of Havoc and wore a mask too. Everyone wore a mask. This is crazy.
It's Lucha, baby.
Yeah, everyone was a luchador. It's fine. It's fine. But next up, Jade Cargill's streak. Now, I don't see this thing ending anytime soon. I have no idea who can beat her. I
don't know how they're going to beat
her. Maybe Marina Shafir. I know she's been on like Dark and Elevation. Maybe they finally build her up. That would make sense in a way because she's a legit MMA fighter.
Man,
but yeah, I have no idea who's
going to karate shit.
I don't care about that cage fight and shit. Which honestly, that line was hilarious because nothing Tai Conti do is really karate, which I think makes it even funnier. And
she comes out dressed as a Mortal Kombat character.
But man, she looks like a star. She is getting exponentially better in the ring every time she goes in there, which is impressive. She's only been wrestling for like 2 years or something like that. Something insane. Because me and my friend who talk about wrestling all the time, he was like, "Man, she's not that good." And I was like, "I think she's been wrestling for like a few years."
I think
he's
she
like,
just hit a year, she said.
Yeah, and I was like, "Yeah, dude, it's been like 2 years." And he's like, "Okay, that's actually impressive." And I'm like, "Yeah, dude." I was like, "Look up this stuff before you judge someone."
When you have Bryan Danielson go,
training
hey,
yeah.
I'm going to take you under my wing. You have to have something.
Yeah, Zach, do you have any idea who's going to beat the streak, or are they just going to do it until she beats Goldberg's streak or something?
I mean, I think it's either going to be something super fluky, Like maybe it'll somehow it'll involve Mark Sterling messing up or something, and that's how that's split. Or I could see it being something if any of the rumors of Athena, Ember Moon, if she ever comes and joins, it's going to be one of those big names because it's somebody they'll be able to play it as it's somebody Jade hasn't seen. She doesn't know what to expect, catches her by surprise. I mean, look at Athena's finisher with the Eclipse. She hits that.
Right. Oh,
Jade could be dominating one thing. I don't see it being just a straight down the middle, somebody beats her. It's going to either be a big name debuting or some wacky fluke. And I really don't hope it's that because there's too much of that nowadays.
Probably like a cattle prod involved, right?
You're going full WCW with this.
Yeah. That was one of the dumbest things I've ever watched in my life. I think it's pretty bad. And in wrestling, that's kind of saying a lot. But
I was in the boat at first, like you were saying about your buddy, where I was like, I know she just started. Obviously, they were going to build her up when you put her in one of her first matches, and it's her and Shaq.
Yeah,
that's huge. And then you see her build up the wins, and they're building up the streak. As soon as I saw she was in the TBS title, I was like, oh, that's hers. There was never any doubt. But she's getting better. She's adding new moves. She's selling the offense well. And she has that personality. I like the subtlety of the match. She had her move, and when she did the pin, you saw her turn, and you could tell she was looking at her kid. Like they always kind of reference those little things of, okay, she's doing this because, as she says, she's that bitch. But she's doing it for her daughter. She wants to be the strong, proud, independent, just champion, and I love it. I don't want it to end anytime soon. Let her go.
Yeah.
I'm talking honky tonk man levels of let's go 900 plus days.
Honky tonk levels. What a pull, man. Yeah, I would love to see it. I guess the only one I could think, if I had to pick someone who is in the company now that could do it maybe and sneak it by, would maybe be Ruby because the story's there. But even that, I'm like, I don't know. You know, that's like the one thing I'll criticize the women's division. They have a ton of talent there. They need more good storylines. And we'll talk a little bit more about probably the best storyline they've done. But even that, at this point, feels kind of like needs to hit another level like it did before. It's just, I wish they had more of that. And they're kind of doing it with Sheeta and Deeb. It's just,
I
feel like there needs to be more of that.
I'm optimistic with some of the people they've brought in at this pay-per-view, which I'm sure we'll touch on later, who have been known to have quite an influence on women's wrestling in previous companies.
That's a good
point. That's why I'm very optimistic now. Once that was made official, I'm like, okay, we could see some stuff.
Very fair. Liam, what do you think? What do you think about Jade?
Yeah, I'm a fan of Jade. I think she's quite literally the perfect person to hold this type of title too, because how rare is it in pro wrestling for there to be a mid-card women's championship? Like that doesn't happen ever in any promotion that I've been watching actively, at least. And you have this dominant female with an undefeated streak. And also, how do you have an undefeated streak and not have her go for the world title when there's a ranking system in play? Oh, well, she's obviously the TBS champion. Like that is her barricade right now. And I think it's perfect because it helps keep that continuity of why is she not after the world title right now for women's? That's because she's the TBS champion. The longer you keep this streak going, the more you market this streak, having those giant banner graphics at the end, 20-something and 0, that does wonders because it's subtle, but it's also just planting in the audience's subconscious that this is a big deal. She is a big deal. And therefore, the title is also a big deal for a championship that just got introduced. That's a lot of people argued wasn't necessary because AEW does have a fairly small women's division compared to their tag divisions, men's singles. They don't have as many wrestlers on the books. But with every defense, with every spotlight they put on Jade Cargill, it only just emphasizes to me that it's a title that's warranted. This is a performer I should be watching. And whoever does beat her for that title is going to feel like a massive deal. And that title is not going to feel like a prop. It's going to feel like, damn, this is, everyone always says, you know, the Intercontinental Championship with the lineage of Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels held this title before they went on to the world title. The Intercontinental title, to me, has not felt like that prop up mid-card championship in years. Right now, the TBS championship, it's still too early to tell, but I think the sky is that, early 90s, late 80s limit of what the Intercontinental title was.
Yeah, like the TNT feels that way too. It's like they almost don't even feel like mid-card titles. They just feel like, hey, they have 5 major titles and they all feel important. And that's like another thing we've talked about like putting people over and stuff like that. Another thing that AEW does so well is that there's so many people that kind of lose a lot, but they still feel important. Like Eddie Kingston lost a lot before Revolution, felt super important. Darby, like most of his singles matches in the past months, he's lost. He lost CM Punk, he lost the 3-way, everything like that, and he still feels insanely important. And it's a testament to what they do. You like the wins, like they say wins and losses matter in AEW, obviously, but they don't really matter to like us. They don't diminish anyone's view of anything. Like the Young Bucks losing the tag titles are not like, oh yeah, jobbers. You know what I mean? They're like, no, they're the fucking Young Bucks. Like there's, it's like Darby losing to CM Punk. Oh, he's a jobber now. It's like, no, he just lost to CM Punk. Like that's not anything to shy away from. It's
people are going to lose unless they're Jade Cargill.
Yes, dude, that's a good point. Brendan, what are your thoughts on Jade Berg?
I am a Jade Cargill guy. I would wear that shirt every day of the week. You just
is that a shirt? That should be a shirt.
It should be.
It should be a shirt.
Your favorite company would probably make it.
What a maneuver!
There's there's an inside pro wrestling tees joke because I used to knock on pro wrestling tees all the time because every design they put out was a rip. I'm letting you into the inside joke, Liam. Is that every design was a rip off of like something else. Like it's a very popular thing in a lot of metal bands do it too, where they'll like, oh yeah, the Acacia Strain,
Hustle, Rise Above Hate,
or anything like that. Like everything's a rip off of something pop culture, and that's like all what pro wrestling tees was for years, and it's changed a little bit. And I also knocked them for printing on really cheap shirts and doing on-demand printing when they're like a fully fledged print shop. I also do work for a print shop and was in a band, so I take like very weirdly pride in quality merch, I guess. And I get bummed out when I like spend $30 on a shirt and it's like a really cheap t-shirt and it wasn't even really screen printed. And I'm like, it doesn't cost that much to make it. I know firsthand. Just like you're a company that makes so much money. Just do it. Like people love quality stuff. So just do it.
And I will say shout out to your wife, which is how we got connected, because Hot Topic always does quality teas. Like genuinely. I've never been disappointed by a Hot Topic tea.
That's right. This show is sponsored by Hot Topic. Not really. I wish. That'd be awesome. I make that joke all the time because I like this hoodie. It's from Hot Topic. I own way too many things from Hot Topic, but that is what it is. But sorry, Brendan. Carry
on. Yeah, she's a star. Look at her. It's all you got to do. She has charisma. She has confidence. And yeah, she has that Goldberg mystique to where she doesn't lose. But unlike Goldberg, who would be 3-0 on Nitro, and then by the next week is somehow 21-0, and you're like, well, these numbers don't make sense. You can see everything she does because it's either dark elevation, dynamite, rampage. You can see it, which I think lends to the credibility of the record. And she's getting better. You can, from that match with Shaq, Cody, and Brandy to this past Sunday, you can see where she's getting better. And yeah, there are still times like, I think it was the match with AQA to where it kind of fell apart and neither one really knew how to get it back on track. And but again, she's a year in. She's greener than her outfit was the other night. But you would never tell by how much confidence she has in herself. And that's something that's really refreshing. Because again, you can have that star. And I've always been a fan of the WCW TV title. Same thing with ECW. It might not have been on TV every week, but you knew you were going to get it every couple of shows. And it was just for that. So we have one for TNT, one for TBS. And I love that one's men's, one's women's. And it's like, who else could you pick than Jade Cargill right now? Who is, other than Britt Baker, the face of this division to carry that belt? Yeah. And she's just fantastic. I can't wait to see what her and new signee to be named later teaches her in the ring going forward.
I want to add in too, because I just thought of this. I like the fact we get the Goldberg comparisons, but 90% of Goldberg matches were squashes, and these, Jade's taking bumps. She's taking the moves. You don't ever really think she's going to lose, but you're like, it's not a 2-minute squash every time.
Right.
She's kicking out at 2.9. She's getting her finishers reversed. So it's refreshing that they're not just Jade's undefeated, squash everybody. It's maybe she's going to lose, but probably not.
And what Liam said, I do love the graphic. I love it. I almost thought they were going to put it up at the pay-per-view because it went out kind of when she got out of the ring, and usually it's like when she's in the ring. And I was like, "Where's that graphic?" I was like, "Okay, there it is. Good. I love that. I don't know. I think it's great. Like he said, it adds perfectly to her credibility and like her being a star. I love it. And this might be my match of the night, but I think I'm biased because I'm a huge CM Punk fan. But the dog collar match and. When CM Punk when MJF faked out the CM Punk entrance, and then CM Punk came out to AFI in his Ring of Honor gear.
Oh my God.
I was losing my mind. I could not believe it. I was like, holy shit. I did see Liam post the Killswitch song he used to come out to. I think WWE has rights to it in some way because they have a compilation where it's out. I don't really know how that would work. Maybe they could still pay for it. I really don't know. I'm not huge into music rights. I know Tony's very good at music rights, so I'm sure he could have figured it out. But the AFI definitely full circle with everything. The Doc Collar matches he had in Ring of Honor, but him coming on that gear, I was like, put that on AEW Shop right now, and I will buy it. I don't care how much money it is. Like I was like, I know they won't because there's like a custom ring jacket for him, and Brendan mentioned him being in the scrum, being emotional about the Ring of Honor stuff, but like. He said he was tired of crying today, and he said the first time he like welled up was when he saw that ring jacket, and I was like, this is making me emotional because it's like it's so weird because like I said, he got me back into wrestling. He made me like fall in love with professional wrestling because I was like, man, there's this dude who's on the biggest wrestling company in the world talking about how he's straight edge, and that's the coolest thing ever to me. Like even thinking back, like knowing kind of what you know about WWE, I'm like surprised they let it happen. But I guess it's so much of his character, they couldn't really not let him do it. Like, what would they like? It's so weird. And it's so funny how WWE makes people who do stuff for the better the heels always. You know, like straight edge guy is the heel. That's weird. And then Daniel Bryan is a vegan who loves the earth as the heel for some reason. It's like so weird. But
Daniel, you gotta eat meat.
That Daniel Bryan heel run was incredible, though. I will say that. But yeah. This match was exactly, I think, what everyone thought it was going to be. Lots of blood, real brutal. And we'll go into this further, but the full circle moment was Wardlow winning the ladder match and him coming out and can't find the ring, but then he gives the ring to CM Punk. I thought was so perfect. Incredible storytelling. They've been building it so slow and so subtly through the whole time. And I came to a point, I'm glad they did it now, because I came to a point last week when MJF yelled at him or whatever, he's like, I own you, like I'm the reason you get paid. And I was like, at this point, don't you think TK would sign this guy? You know, like I know we're kind of supposed to suspend our disbelief with some things, but I was like, I think he'd get signed. Like, I'm just gonna throw it out there. I think that dude would get signed, and I love how they've been doing the Powerbomb Symphony and how over he's been. But what are your thoughts on this match, Brendan? Because man, this was everything to me. I don't know if it was match of the night, but I think that the moments they had in it and like the impact of the entrance and the ending, like I just thought it was amazing storytelling.
This was my match of the night. I know I said Jericho Kingston was close. This is it though. Just the weeks of the callbacks to Ring of Honor, whether it be through his promos, whether it be through the things he's done, like he did to Raven, were now being done to him. And I saw people, obviously, I'm sure we've all seen the discourse about people not knowing the song versus people knowing the song and this and that. Who cares? Whatever. Shut up. Enjoy it. And then I saw people complaining about a 45-year-old guy in basketball shorts. But it's like you're purposely missing the story to complain about something that doesn't need to be complained about.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing was MJF pushed him back to a place he had been in 20 plus years. And so he was going to commit. He was going to go all the way. And the man had his dog on his jacket. Like there's nothing better than that. but just the music, and you can see him getting emotional and punching the ground along with the beat, and then he does his whole entrance like he did back in Ring of Honor, and it's just this whole week of the company that made him love this business again, buying the company that made him love the business when he was in it the first time, and he gets to relive it. Like,
yeah,
who can't get behind that story? And then just the dog collar match. I mean, the Roddy Piper, Greg Valentine one is one of my favorite matches. I have watched it more times than probably is healthy for anybody. And I mean, the Cody and Brody one was good, but
that was really good.
I mean, I've seen 4, and Punk was in 2, and his 2 are probably the best that I've seen. And just, Wardlow finally being like, oops, and just handed him the ring and being like, all right, do it what you want. And it's just, fucking this story. I mean, an MJF again, to our talk of Jungle Boy and Sammy and Darby, 24, maybe 25, and he's this good. Not even close to his prime yet. And he's working with a guy 20 years older than him, and they're telling a story that is just captivating. Like, you can't take your eyes off of it.
No.
Beautiful.
It's wild. And even if you didn't know the song, you look it up and you're like, oh, wow, that was his Ring of Honor song. Oh, holy shit, he dressed in the same. It's like, it's cool either way.
And Excalibur explained it 2 seconds after the song started.
True, yes, yeah.
You knew it.
That's very true.
And I think that's an issue with some people that, again, one side spoon feeds you every little thing, every little time. No, you'll get the info you need, especially from Excalibur. He's going to tell you.
Yeah.
Move on. We have the internet. It's 2022. You don't know anything. Look it up.
Look it up. Not a big deal.
Like, and left you the breadcrumbs to know this is going to be a Ring of Honor match. You just go find it.
Yeah, and it's funny because I posted the I like shared the Spotify to my Instagram story or whatever of the song, and I put like, if you know, you know, and so many people were like, oh, that song is awesome, and I was like, oh, the people who don't watch wrestling and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, it used to be CM Punk's old music, and he came out to it, and they're like, oh, holy shit, that's fucking so cool. And it's like people who don't give a fuck about wrestling, and they're like, that's awesome, and I'm like, yeah, it is awesome.
It is.
you're right, it is awesome. Now, Liam, what'd you think about all this?
Yeah, this match was just everything. Like, there's so much I want to discuss with it. This wasn't my match of the night because I like the technical wrestling, the ones that are more traditional straight up, but this was like a storyline being played out through wrestling. Like, everyone always kind of gives me shit who doesn't watch wrestling when I say it's an art form. I point them to matches like this because Jesus Christ, like I've been watching wrestling since 2011, over half my life now, and it's at the point where I rarely get to see such a captivating feud that doesn't involve a title unfold in live time on television. Usually I've gone back and binge watched old great feuds from Ring of Honor, from New Japan, Kevin Steen, El Generico, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, but like very rarely do I get to see each and every week what's the next chapter of this story. And to get that final episode kind of at this pay-per-view, who knows where they go from here, but everything felt like a season finale. And that's so cool. Like, I don't get the complaints about the entrance because to me, why would you not want to dive into the deeper rooted lore?
Right.
Like, don't get me wrong. When it happened, I knew that it was a callback to Ring of Honor, but I didn't have like a connection to it because I wasn't watching that live. I've been listening to AFI every single day since Sunday. No joke.
Yeah, great choice.
Jimmy Havoc also used to come out to AFI in Progress. And it's just been like in my playlist. And I've watched that clip of Punk coming out to that song, both in Ring of Honor and at this AEW pay-per-view. And it's captivating. It's mesmerizing. No one left Avengers Endgame and was pissed that they didn't pick up on all the references. They were pissed that they didn't see the movies beforehand. Like, and then they would come back and going, oh, that line was a callback to there. That's so cool. Like, the idea of, you need your wrestling, you need your entertainment to be like spoon fed to you. And here is why this makes sense. And hey, just so you know, CM Punk is about to come out, but it's going to be a reference to this thing in the past. That's not fun. Like, I love the idea of I'm someone who I'm like a pro wrestling junkie, the same way as I am with Marvel movies. When I'm caught by surprise, it's so rare, and I don't get insulted. I get intrigued. I'm like, I missed something really dope in my years of watching this great sport. Let me go catch up on it. Oh my God, that's awesome. That added just another layer of appreciation to it. I think it's such a nitpick, and like you'd never see this happen in the Fed, in the WWE. You never see it. You never see them reference like, oh, there's AJ Styles. He used to compete for New Japan Pro Wrestling. That's the one line of dialogue you'll get dropped there. Or, every guy who wrestled for New Japan has Japanese characters on their tights for whatever reason, just to let you know that they wrestled overseas back in the day. That's all you get there. Here, such a blatant homage to the past, I thought was genius. It was awesome. And I know I've been rambling here, but I can't not talk about the Wardlow bit. Like, good Lord. The ring, having it be so subtle too, not having him be like panicking and figuring it out. Him clearly being pissed off, the body language. He's been doing this every single week. He's been like rolling his eyes as he gives it.
Yes.
He's in no rush to find it. And then when he does find it, having the obnoxious, like, oops, here it is, him looking at Punk and just placing it down. Dynamite is must watch for that moment alone, because how does MJF respond? He's not going to be a dummy and be like, oh, of course I watched the match back, but he's also going to have the out of being like, oh, well, I left it there for you, theoretically. Like, he's still being cheeky about it. The full turn hasn't happened yet, but we got just a taste of what that pop is going to be like. And when he eventually does, thumbs down MJF, as we all expect him to, I don't know if it'll be a straight up thumbs down, but that's the storyline we're working with right now, is very Batista Triple H. When that happens eventually, it's going to be insane. And we just talked about Jade Cargill. Wardlow is one of their most organically AEW homegrown talents ever. Because even the Jungle Boys, Sammys, MJFs, Darby's, they have some sort of indie foundation. I don't know anything about Wardlow's indie experience. I don't think Jade was wrestling before AEW. These guys are like tried and true Nightmare Factory bred talents, and having them be this popular with the crowd on the same card as Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole, CM Punk is massive. And it just goes to show, investing in your future is never going to be a bad thing.
100%. And I do hope they go far enough into the story that when the turn happens and MJF fires him, that they do a Wardlow as all elite graphic. I will lose my mind if they do it. Because I would be like, fuck yeah, that's real dedication to the art form of professional wrestling. If they did that, like Wardlow is all elite, like I would lose my fucking mind. And it does seem like obviously like MJF's probably going to cost Wardlow the title match, because no offense to Scorpio Sky, but I don't think anyone's beaten Sammy. I could see Wardlow beating Sammy for sure, but I think MJF's going to probably cost him, which would make sense. But Zach, what do you think about the CM Punk of it all, the Wardlow of it all?
All in all, this might be one of my favorite feuds of all time, strictly because they brought the real world aspect into it and made it work.
Oh my God.
Normally they'll try
MJF
that
promo.
It feels like I was like, oh my God, this poor dude. And then to find out, like, the picture he was referencing, that post from an Instagram, all of that was true, just to have him turn around and kick Punk square in the dick. I saw people complaining that, Punk's recycling his old promos. I was like, no, he was referencing it because MJF did first.
Yes.
Just all the little subtleties. Like when the lights went out and you saw the smoke and you just heard that first couple notes, I lost my mind. I was like, he's going to come out in the shorts and the jacket. He's going to have the tape. He's going to throw it up. Like, he hasn't done that in how long?
Yeah, since WWE.
And it was just, everything about it was perfect. The only even slight nitpick would be, it's once again MJF losing the big one. He's another one where he's in all these feuds and he always seems to lose the blow-off match, but it doesn't hurt him. And the fact that it was the catalyst for Wardlow, the subtle, as Liam said, just like, I forgot. No, I didn't. That where he had stepped over MJF and dropped in the ring a couple weeks back. Just, there were so many little subtleties that made it just absolutely perfect. And like you said, Wednesday is must see, if not for that alone, because it's going to be amazing.
I will say real quick on that point, the Jericho match should not have been a career stipulation, and MJF should have won. But in this story particularly, I think that it made sense for Punk to win, because I feel like too often we get caught up in the older guy beat the younger guy, therefore he's like been buried. And I know that's not what you're saying, Zach.
Right.
in the context of this story, looking at it purely for entertainment value.
Oh, Punk should have 100% should have won because it was him.
Yeah, MJF was like a piece of shit. Like
he was a new level piece of shit.
Like, you stupid old man, I'm a snake. As Punk is bleeding the most I've ever seen a wrestler bleed since like John Cena in the mid 2000s. While being choked up by a dog collar. That was the last thing we saw on TV. Like, if MJF still won this match, I would have been like, all right, I get investing in the future talent. But in terms of an individual story,
oh, you wanted to see
the knight in shining armor like needs to like, you know, take the throne.
And the fact that they tied it in with Wardlow the way they did is why beautiful. I was okay with it, because it's not just the good guy. It's the good guy getting help from the kind of shitty guy who's realizing, maybe I don't want to be that shitty guy anymore. So it builds so much for the future. You're going to have Sean Spears involved somehow with everything he's been doing, and Wardlow getting pissed about that. You have so many storylines this could branch off to.
Yeah.
Just so well done.
And they did do a really amazing detail of when they would do beatdowns, Wardlow would never actively engage in them. Either he would be there, let it happen.
You could tell he was like, all right, this is fucking stupid. Just stop.
Which is amazing. So good. Liam, do you have something else to add?
I was just gonna say, you mentioned the whole like recycling the promos aspect. What I love about pro wrestling is like the continuity of like you can follow one character throughout promotion and just really appreciate this like 20-year epic story full of crossovers and heel turns and betrayals and friendships. And I don't like when, you know, guys get to WWE and they shed their name and they shed their identity and all
nothing they did before ever happened.
Right. All the lore is gone. They just maybe reference like, oh, these guys wrestled overseas before. It's like, I love when Punk specifically said, like, I took a wrestler's dead manager's ashes and spread it on him. I was like, I remember that. I remember watching it on TV. Like, this
I poured really alcohol down an alcoholic's throat. You're just like,
right, to the point where he made him quit the company. It's like
that was kind of a piece of shit.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. It made you question where your allegiance was, but on the same time, too, it's like, okay, that was like 10, 15 years ago, and it's incorporated into this story naturally. Oh, they are rewarding me for being a pro wrestling fan. Like, I've been invested in this sport for 10, 15 years, and here are these callbacks that I've been waiting for. Like, that's so crucial to good storytelling. That's why I love like the MCU, because it feels everything's connected. And when you watch 6 straight weeks of a show and get that big reference in a big crossover movie, okay, I spent my time well. Like watching Raw every single week. Do I regret it most of the time? Yeah. But like, you know, when he referenced the Ashes thing, I'm like, I'm glad I was tuning in for Mania season in 2013.
Yeah, there's one reference that Punk has made to his old career that might be my favorite and has nothing to do with storyline. He was on commentary and Serena Deeb was wrestling and she's like, this Serena Deeb's got a good head of hair on her. And I was like, wow, that was amazing. I was like, holy shit, that was an amazing line. Oh my God. I hope he kind of, once he eventually is done wrestling, I would love if he would be a commentator. Obviously that dude can talk for eons and I'll listen to him describing a like lawnmower manual or something. You know, like
real quick, because he just inspired me when he did NXT commentary with, I think it was Michael Cole or no, Josh Matthews, and AJ Lee was wrestling and she hit a move and Josh Matthews goes, the Lucha Libre style of AJ Lee, and Punk goes, that was an arm drag. Americans do arm drags.
Incredible. What a man. That dude's amazing. I love CM Punk.
I want to do a slight segue just because the commentary.
Yes, of course.
When Don Callis came out, and I don't know if they just didn't cut Excalibur's mic, or he was like, Tony, I'll pay you $50 to punch him. Make it 100, 200. And he just kept going. And I'm just like, I don't know if that was meant to air, but just the little comment about Punk right there just reminded me that. I was like, that was hilarious. And I can't help but wonder, did he know his mic was on? Was it intentional, or was it just Excalibur being Excalibur?
I feel like he had to, because I think Tony has not shied away from his distrust of Don Callis. I think that goes for everybody. But
also, that was a very good twist in the buy-in with Don Callis coming out, because I was like, there is no fucking way Kenny Omega's coming out on the fucking buy-in. I was like, no way. That's obviously a massive return, and I was like, also, that's a really quick for him to return, because I know he was dealing with a lot of injuries. So I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then when he came out, I was like, oh, that's
yeah. And I just like how Excalibur was like, I am so sorry.
I love how the commentators outright like talk shit about people who are portrayed as horrible people, like them like calling MJF a piece of shit, like that. Like I love that. And another thing with AEW too that I love in kind of conjuncture to that is that the good guys help the good guys, and the bad guys kind of like have an understanding. Don't really help each other out, but maybe sometimes do. But the fact that like baby faces help baby faces, which is like the most ground level concept, is just so welcomed. You know, it's like, of course it would make sense. Like, you guys are boys. Like, why wouldn't you go out and help them?
And that's how it used to be.
Yes. And that's the one thing I felt was a little weird with the ending segment of Dynamite when Hangman Page was like wrapped up. And I was like, where's the Dark Order? Like, where's anyone? They're just gonna let him out to dry. You know what I mean? I think it might be to make an MCU reference, kind of like how Liam has, is that it's the moment happens in a city, or it's like a big moment, and they're like, where the fuck's everyone else? You know what I mean? It's like the Hawkeye stuff. It's like, well, where's Daredevil? Where's Spider-Man? Kind of where's anyone else? You know? And it's kind of like, they're doing something, I guess.
A little busy.
They've done a kind of better job of explaining things to like with like Eternals. There's no one on Earth that could have even gotten there to help anyway, because there's like no one on Earth that can travel that fast. You know what I mean? It's like, is Hawkeye just gonna put on his suit and fly all the way halfway across the world? Probably not. I don't think so, and I don't think he would have helped that much in that fight. You know, but there's like Thor is an on-world, Captain Marvel is an on-world. They kind of explained it with that, but it's sometimes in wrestling too. There's like, where was everyone? I was hoping they do a BTE sketch because Evil Uno got cursed. That they'd be like, where were you to help me out? And they're like, oh, I got cursed. I didn't know where I was, but they focused on different stuff with BTE between Dark Order and Hangman, which we'll cover in a little bit. But kind of, this is a long card, so I'm sorry if I'm keeping you guys too long. There's a lot to talk about.
No worries.
But looks like we got a new stable in AEW. I know some people are kind of stabled out. I kind of love stables. I always wished WWE had more stables. And New Japan is all stables. I'm completely down with it, and it kind of adds to the more of the helping people and stuff like that.
Right. Everybody should have someone's back.
Yeah,
they don't have to tag together every time. They don't have to do everything. But hey, we like the same things. Let's be friends.
Yeah, exactly. And this was, of course, Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson, and the ending of how it concluded and who broke them up with William Regal coming down. That was definitely a massive surprise for me. I know he obviously got let go from the company, from WWE and everything, which was also a shock to me. Like, why would they let that guy go? That's crazy. But like, this was a thing. It's hard. It's kind of like it happens with pop culture too. It's kind of really hard for things to be a total surprise nowadays with the way the news cycle works in anything in pop culture, wrestling included. Like, we all knew Shane Strickland was coming because everyone was posting, oh, they're in talks to make a deal. Sean Ross Sapp's tweeting about it. Like, every website's talking about it. And, it's the same thing with people cameoing in a movie. Like, oh, they're probably cameoing in this movie. And then they cameoed in the movie. So there was no talks of William Regal, at least that I saw. I stay away from more of the dirt sheet type websites. I try to follow the only websites that actual report on actual news. But I was generally surprised by William Regal showing up. I thought it was super cool, and what a perfect person to manage, which I am highly thinking is going to be a brand new stable in AEW with Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley. Liam, were you surprised with this? What do you think about this new stable? This was the other tag team I was talking about. Like, if these guys are a tag team, there's no way they're not winning the belts. Like, no one is going to beat them, for one. Like, you're not going to beat this tag team, but we'll see how they go with that. Whether they're kind of just more of mentors, they don't really team together, and they kind of do their own thing, or with singles and everything like that. But what is your thoughts on this new brawler stable that's likely forming?
Yeah, I was completely shocked by William Regal showing up, and like for better or worse, it's the double-edged sword of working in media of stuff that I love. Like I know so much about plans for like wrestling stuff that you could know publicly. That's not me being like, ooh, I know secrets and everything. Like if you seek the dirt sheets, you'll find out. And
Yeah.
occasionally I'll hear stuff beforehand, but like nothing really takes me by shock or surprise anymore until like a Malachi Black debuts on Dynamite. That, I lost my mind. I had no idea he was coming in. Same thing with William Regal. I had no idea that AEW was seeking him. I know that, not that I don't know actually. Their books are complicated because I know the whole Cody situation went down with contract, and I think they disagreed on a number, which kind of made me think that maybe they're not going to sign that many more people. And a William Regal type person is only going to be a behind the scenes guy. So would you really need him? Now having him as like an on-screen manager, he's listed on the AEW website as a coach. So I love that for him. I love him being like a Taz-like player where he can appear on screen while also have a big mentor role behind the scenes as well. He's one of the greatest wrestling minds, I think, of all time. And that's said by everyone across the business. And he's going to be someone I think very, very quickly WWE is going to regret letting go from a talent acquisition standpoint. The amount of guys he recruited to NXT cannot be understated. It's insane. So also to have him have an on-screen role, harken back to his brawler days, emphasize, like I said, of how much I love lore. He trained Daniel Bryan. Like he was integral there. He was a big mentor to Jon Moxley. Bring together this group of like brawlers, get a Daniel Garcia in there. A lot of people mentioning like Jonathan Gresham. I think you already have a guy on the books in Jay Lethal that fits in with those guys perfectly. And I love stables, like for better or worse. I know that it can get crowded in an AEW roster. Stables is their perfect solution to that because it allows for 10 guys to be on TV at once, even if they're just there in a manager role, even if they're just there ringside. It allows them to get screen time, which is the best way to build up your roster. So I'm all for this brawler stable, and I cannot wait to see what William Regal does on Wednesday's Dynamite. I hope it's a promo, and I hope he expands upon that little tease, because he didn't have a mic at Revolution, but he said, "Shake your hands, and then we'll sort this place out." We'll sort this place out. Like, what a tease! That's incredible. And yeah, sky's the limit.
I loved him physically smacking both of them.
Bitch slapping them. That wasn't just a smack.
Yeah.
That was a what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, get your shit in line. I'm smacking you in the face. Zach, what'd you think about all this?
I'm 110% behind this. I'm looking forward to see what William Regal's murder babies do, because that's just what I'm going to refer to them as.
Yes, that's amazing.
I like the idea of Lethal. I know almost immediately after Lee Moriarty tweeted out, just like, it was something like a very subtle thing about it. And I know that's somebody who Danielson had been talking about. Obviously Garcia, but then you have the 2.0 aspect. So I could see that being an interesting little power struggle. But that was also alluded to when Danielson first signed, was him flat out saying, Daniel Garcia is a young me. And a lot of people didn't dispute that. But Regal coming out, as Liam said, it's very hard to be surprised nowadays. If you're on Twitter, you know who's signing when. Yeah. Malachi was obviously the surprise because nobody knew he only had a 30-day. Yeah. Swerve was a given. I mean, everybody knows that Jeff Hardy's likely. The things like that aren't subtle. I remember Regal got released. I don't know if there was no clause because he wasn't a wrestler. I definitely don't think it's been 90 days. But when he walked out, it was one of the first times where in Audible, I was like, holy shit. Mind you, I'm sitting in my house watching it alone. I'm not talking to anybody. And I was like, holy shit. And then to watch him just slap them both. And like you said, the subtlety without the microphone of we'll sort this out. Like I said, we're going to get William Regal's murder babies and people are going to die. And it's going to be wonderful to watch.
It's going to be glorious violence, and I cannot wait for it. And I do love that an interview came out with Bryan Danielson, and one of the reasons why he left, he has nothing but good things to say about WWE and Vince. but he wanted to bleed more. And Vince is like, no.
I
And he's
can't do
like,
that. And, well, okay. Like,
yeah. He wasn't like flat out like, oh, I'm leaving then, but like that was like part of the reason why he wanted to leave. And I was like, damn. And that's such a cool thing. I remember when Daniel Bryan at the time retired, I was in Europe on tour and I like heard about it and I watched his retirement speech and I was like crying because him and CM Punk are probably my favorite wrestlers of probably like all time, I would say. And I was like so sad because I get super emotional when you can tell people are passionate about things. And the fact that he was like, I can't do the one thing that I love and I have no, like, there's nothing I can do about it. And when he came back, I was like, man, that is so cool. And we kind of seen it more, like Edge came back, Sting came back and stuff like that. And you're like, man, that's super awesome that they're able to do that. Because, they could have been paralyzed, most of them. And the fact that they were able to like live a healthy life was one thing, but to come back to something they love is so amazing. And as soon as he showed up in AEW, I was like, this is going to be the best. And just even seeing him kind of become his old self, but better.
His Ring of Honor self.
Has been the best. Because obviously he has improved with promos and being on TV and even his wrestling style. And he kind of got formulaic in WWE after a while, which most people tend to do for the most part in WWE. And to see him like fully unleashed and be the technical wrestler he always has been unbelievable. And I can't wait to see what I like. Murder babies. I can't wait to see these murder babies.
I like that he can bleed, he can swear, and if he wants, he's gonna kick your fucking head in.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
the fact that they worked that into his entrance music was one of the coolest subtle details.
Yeah.
Like TK got the original chant from a random Ring of Honor match and worked it into the theme song. That was phenomenal.
Yeah, that theme song is awesome, and I love how it's like a mix of kind of his old themes and stuff like that. It's
like it would have been cool to get Final Countdown, but I think this works.
I think it's better than Final. I think Final Countdown would get very old very fast.
Yeah,
that's why I think they should do it like one time big match, main event of a pay-per-view.
Yes,
like we got AFI. They could shell out $500,000 for a one-time Final Countdown, right?
I mean, it's TK.
There's no way
man.
it should be that much. Come
on, the number they were asking for was like insane.
Yeah, like buying or like being able to like put certain musics or like it all depends on the length too. The longer it is, the more money it is. It's crazy money. That's like the I Will Always Love You in the beginning of Far From Home. Like they spent so much money on that.
Mm-hmm. That's why I was slightly sad we didn't get to hear some Shaka Khan with Swerve.
Oh, and they made like a new theme.
But granted, I think that's him doing his own music, which is really cool too.
Yeah,
but I always wonder because like with the CM.
Oh Punk, yeah, it's like his like brother or cousin or something.
Yeah, like with CM Punk being friends with Living Color, did it cost him a little less to be able to use Cult of Personality or Orange? Like but I also like the fact that TK's not shy about. Oh, they want this music. Oh, this music suits them. Cool. I don't think any song could be better for Orange Cassidy.
No, that's really good.
Jungle Boy is another great example. Moxley, I'm not the biggest fan of. I don't know. I might be in a minority there, but I don't think it fits him well. But
it reminds me of Major League, and that's kind of why it works for me.
Okay,
in a way.
Just somebody is like
his old theme though.
Yeah, like somebody as badass and stuff as him to have almost that mellow of a song. It just
that's fair. It's a cool sing along.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. That dude could come out to Silence and it'd be electric. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter. When he comes out, you're like, okay, here it is. We're
like there. I mean, don't get me wrong. There is something special. It was I think an NEW show I was working where nobody knew Moxley was going to be there. We literally found out, I think, 2 minutes before the show because we looked at the computer, saw a graphic, and I was like, hey, why does that say John Moxley? And they're like, go to your camera. And that music hit and that place exploded. Right. So it definitely has its place, but I like that TK's just like, oh, you want this song? Here's a checkbook.
Yeah. I mean, that dude can afford it. You know what I mean? Like, dude's got some money. So, Britt Baker, obviously the most over women in the division. She's earned it. someone who's really come into her own in AEW, I would say. But this match may have been one of my least favorite on the card, which I liked all of it. It's just it felt like it wasn't there, like it needed to be, and it had to follow the dog collar match, which is ungodly impossible. I could not believe they put that after. I thought they were going to put like the trios match or something after to kind of just like, I don't know, have some sort of buffer. But I was like, oh my God, this is next. I was like, that's rough. That is rough for them. And it wasn't even that. It's just like, I don't know. They seemed like really out of sync. And even before that, like I didn't feel like the feud hit the level that it hit a year ago. And it does like I just said, is Britt's reign coming to an end. Like we saw Thunder Rosa has this number one contenders match, and then it's the title match. Guess what? It's in Thunder Rosa's hometown. Where they just wait in 2 weeks to give her a big moment in her hometown. I don't know. It kind of seems like it because it's kind of come to a point in her reign where it's like, if Thunder Rosa doesn't beat her, who is there to beat her that's built up enough to beat her? I guess I can go back to Ruby Soho and they can do something with that if they build it up enough, because she's kind of just been off TV after she lost 2 title matches, which makes sense. She kind of has to start from ground, like square one. Makes total sense. And like that would make sense, I guess. And I guess that could be a double or nothing thing if somehow, but then it kind of just totally devalues Thunder Rosa. The one win she has over Britt is the one that didn't count, which I guess they could play into later, but it's like she's super over. She's an amazing wrestler. Why not pull the trigger, I guess? I don't know. What do you guys think? Zach, what do you think?
I definitely think they're getting to the point where all her matches are almost the same at this point. You're going to get the good offense, good defense. Rebel's going to jump on the apron. Jamie's going to do something. It's all just seems the same at this point. And if they do end up putting the belt on Thunder Rosa, I wish they hadn't done this pay-per-view match, because for something they put so much importance on win and losses, you're going to give her a number one contendership match after she just lost a title match.
I think it's because it was screwy.
Right.
And it was known that it was screwy.
Yeah. In the beginning, they were kind of seemed to be hinting that maybe they were going to do something with Jamie Hayter. She wasn't doing the DMD along with it. She just kind of seemed there and just like, okay, yeah, I'm helping out. But even then at this point, I don't think it'd be credible. I almost feel like maybe they're scared to take the belt off of her because, as you said earlier, next to maybe Jade, who might have even surpassed her at this point, Britt was the face of the women's division. But I think a lot of people, myself included, are just getting tired of Britt's going to lose. Oh, look, there's the interference. That's how she wins. Like, can she win on her own? Is that how they're going to do the stipulation? Is Thunder Rosa is going to be like, you've only beat me with that. I want the match without them at ringside, or they do one of those stipulations where if they interfere, she loses the belt sort of thing. Because otherwise, Thunder Rosa doesn't have a stable. She doesn't have the group of people that are going to come out and help. Maybe Mercedes Martinez, you come out and have them brawl, but then you're going to have the screwy distraction finish. I don't know where they go to make it a credible loss.
Yeah, that's a good point. Liam, what do you think on the Britt Baker front?
Yeah, I do think that this is all building to a cage match. I feel like for whatever reason, I thought I read this somewhere that Tony wanted to do a women's cage match, and Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa just makes sense for those two to be the ones to do it, because they already do kind of have the hardcore experience, and it also has the storyline implications of like, oh, the interference can happen. But I agree with what Zach's saying completely. It's getting very formulaic and repetitive, and it's reminding me a lot of Seth Rollins' 2015 WWE title reign. J&J Security, anything with the Authority. It got to the point where they built up to one particular match. I think it was Money in the Bank. It was him and Ambrose, and it was like, you can't win on your own. And then there was like, they both grabbed the title as a ladder match. I don't know. They built up to the point to where like it became a part of the story, but it clearly wasn't penciled in to be when the title reign started. It just got to be everyone on social media was complaining that your heel champion always needed to cheat to win, and you can have chicken shit heels, like it works, but when it's every single time, it just kind of devalues it. So I think Britt Baker's in a position now to where she's getting very dangerously close to being stale, which they should avoid at all costs because she still is so crazy over. And I think you solve that by doing that cage match. And I think that's the perfect blow off for this feud that's been around for like over a year at this point.
Yeah, and I was thinking too, like it kind of needed to be some sort of stipulation where they keep out outside interference and there's like a definitive winner without other people getting involved. Like obviously you can get people kind of climbing up the cage and stuff like that, but maybe like what you said, Mercedes Martinez comes and helps take them off the cage, and it's really just those two in the middle of the ring. Brendan, what do you think about the Britt Baker? Do you think she's losing the title in a few weeks here? Do you think Thunder Rosa is the move, or if not, who is the move?
I do. I mean, if one thing we've learned so far from AEW is that when you're in your hometown, they don't make you look stupid. Again, it seems like everything is the inverse of what we've known for the last 20 so years. I think we could have then, like Zach said, avoided the match this past weekend if we knew we were just going to it in 2 weeks, because he made Rosa look like she looked strong in the sense that she fought off the interference, but she still ate a pin. Now has to beat someone else who, no disrespect to Layla Hirsch, I don't think is at that level yet.
No,
just
not yet.
Barely got a win on the pre-show, and then is in her hometown 2 weeks from now. I like the idea of the cage match. I think that has to happen because the interference from the other two is, like Liam and Zach both said, it's repetitive. It's getting to the point where it's like a Bullet Club match in 2022. I know 10 people are going to interfere every single match, and it's just going to be like, why do I care what happens? Because everyone and their brother is going to show up, and this result makes no sense. I think Thunder Rosa needs to win. I think she needs to win the belt. Britt was a great champion. I say that kind of paused a little bit because at times, again, it's like, where was she the last few weeks? This feud should have been built up. Like after that,
should have been on fire.
Yeah, after that St. Patrick's Day match last year, we knew it was coming up again this year. You knew what your plans were. Why did we not heat this up more? Because now you have 2 weeks to get this boiling to where we are all excited for Rosa to win. But yeah, I think she's going to lose. She did her job. And then I have no idea where she goes from here. Probably going to be, I would say, Jamie Hayter, because it seems Hayter is not in on the DMD experience as much as Rebel. But I'm looking forward to seeing someone else finally have the belt. It was a good run. Time to change it up.
That new belt looks beautiful.
That's gorgeous.
I just thought of this as like a way to do it, and this is just where the sometimes fantasy booking comes in, is, okay, we know Thunder Rosa is going to beat Layla Hirsch. The week after, they basically frame it with, it's her versus Hayter. If she wins, Hayter and Rebel are banned from ringside. It's a simple, easy solution. Also builds the dissent between Baker and Hayter, because Hayter loses. Britt doesn't have her backup. You can have Britt cutting the promo of like, you let me down, blah, blah, blah. And you just have Hayter with almost similar to Wardlow and MJF in a way. Not as,
I was going to say, she's kind of her Wardlow.
Yeah, like not as I own you, but like, okay, yeah, you need me. You lost without me. That just proves you needed me. It's simple. Right. It's effective. Will TK do it? Who knows?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And wrapping this up, last two matches, this trios match, I'm going to be honest, I like a lot of the people in it. I was not that excited for this going into it, mostly because the AHFO stuff I am not into at all.
I get what they're hopefully building to with the rumored debuts coming up and how that's going to work in. But yeah, it's definitely ran its course.
Yeah. I mean, the triple threat title match on Rampage was incredible, as probably all of us imagined it would be. I kind of wish we saw that in the card instead, but after this match happened, I am totally okay with this match happening because it was fucking awesome and wild. And
you saw 62-year-old Sting jump through 8 tables.
Dude, he's New Jack now, man.
I gotta say, Sting is having career moments. He's turning 63 in like 2 weeks or something. Like, how is this possible? He even in the post pay-per-view scrum was saying, yeah, when I came in, I didn't really know what I was going to do. and they pitched a cinematic match. I did it, and then he said like Cody and Tony and a few other people were like, "You gotta wrestle, dude," and that's why he started doing it. And like, man, the dude has been killing it. Like that's how you use a legend type wrestler, is the way they've been using Sting. It's like the exact opposite of what happened in WWE. Obviously, he does not need to go for the main title because why? It makes zero sense. And him and Darby makes total sense. Obviously, they're both the outcasts. They're both, they both wear face paint and stuff like that. But it's just been amazing.
That intro with the car flying into the trailer and
the flamethrower. I mean, anything Darby does video wise.
Oh, the man is brilliant.
It reminds me of CKY, dude. Like it makes me feel like a teenager. I mean, like he had Tony Hawk on one of them and stuff. I was like,
I mean, he was at Pastrana's jumping off things. I love it. When they built that tower of tables, Sting being the one to jump through was the farthest thing from my mind. I was like,
last thing.
This is where we're going to get Jeff Hardy coming in to save his brother. Or, okay, Sammy. But then Sammy did the Spanish Fly. And I'm like, okay, maybe Andrade is going to do something. And then all of a sudden I see Sting up there. And I'm like, there's no way that 62-year-old Sting. And I'm like, it makes sense why they set up so many tables. But I saw him up there. I was like, no, he's going to like step down and something. No, there he goes. Just full New Jack.
Could not believe it. And I just want to shout out, if you're watching this on video, this is also an episode of Cribs with Brendan. Just a side note. Liam, what did you think of this match?
Sorry, guys. This is running far longer than I thought it would.
Oh, no, it's fine. I just had to make the joke.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Sean, in terms of I didn't have much anticipation for this match, especially because at this point in the card, I was like, all right, let's just get to the main event. And me and my friend that I was watching with, we were both like exhausted by the end because we were so enamored with everything going on. The one thing I'll add, because you mentioned the part about legends being used properly in AEW, it's so subtle, but Darby being the last one to have his entrance music play. Having, I believe the order was Sammy, Sting, Darby. In the audience's mind, what you're telling them is this guy is the most important of the three. And even though I know Sammy's the one with the title, and you could argue he should be last, but in terms of the Darby-Sting pairing, Darby always comes out second, which means you get Sting his pop, everyone's jazzed to see Sting, and then those guitar chords hit, and you're like, oh my God, it's Darby Allin. To me, as a viewer, even though I don't have like a ton of Sting history, my Sting knowledge is mostly TNA and his brief WWE run. And Darby's an infant by comparison. Yet, in my eyes, Darby feels like a bigger deal. And that's what legends should do. And that subtle audio cue, or visual cue, excuse me, of having Darby come out last. And he's the one who goes guns blazing. He's the one who charges the ring and hits the suicide dive immediately. That's awesome, and I love that.
His suicide dives are missiles, man.
They're I don't know how he still moves at the speed he does. That man is just pure and utter recklessness, and I love it.
Yes, yeah, he has no well-being for his body whatsoever. Brendan, do you have anything to add?
Pretty much it. Yeah, you guys nailed it. Sorry, a little distracted, but
no, it's okay. I'm sorry, buddy.
It's a good call out. Again, Sting 62 shouldn't be jumping off balconies. And
we're glad he does.
And I love the fact that Andrade thinks that Darby is a little kid who just works for Sting. I think that's pretty cool.
It's so good. Andrade also murdered everyone in that match, and I loved every second of it.
Can we also just point out how his assistant Jose took one of the most disgusting bumps?
True. And also that dude is ripped as hell. And
is he a wrestler, or is he like?
I believe he is a wrestler, because I remember listening to Post Wrestling a lot, and they brought up when he came out with his shirt off that one time, and everyone was like, "Who is that guy?" And they're like, "Oh, it's the iPad guy," because he was so ripped. They were like, "Who is that guy?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, it was Jose." And they're like, and they looked up and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's like done. He hasn't done
to
much,
take that suicide dive with a trash can over you, especially by Darby running full speed. Like, you don't see it coming. You have a garbage can over your head and you're in a trash. I saw that and I'm just like, that's a brave man.
Yeah, that's rough. That's real rough. All right, I've kept you guys long enough. Let's wrap this up. We got one more thing to talk about. Main event and the next title contender. Obviously, we kind of knew this match was going to be amazing. We know these two men, they're both incredible wrestlers, and we got an amazing match. I definitely didn't think Cole was going to go over here. I just don't think it's the right time to take it off Hangman.
No.
But if I had to guess who is next, I would say it's CM Punk. I don't know what you guys think, but that's who I see going after next. I kind of saw like the MJF CM Punk thing is almost like a number one contender, even though it's obviously wasn't. But that's who I see next. I could be very wrong. That's just kind of how I see it going. But it would be kind of weird because I feel like Punk won't win that either. So to see him lose again, but again, it's like that's a very big, credible win for Hangman Page. He's beat Bryan Danielson. He beat Kenny Omega. If he beat Adam Cole, who hasn't lost a singles match in AEW, and then if he beats CM Punk, like that's another, because I think MJF's got to be the one that dethrones him. Yeah. And I don't think they go to MJF next. It doesn't make sense. MJF's going to have way more shit to deal with for a little while before he and they've done a masterful job of keeping him away from the title. Like they've done such a good job of whether it was Darby, whether it was Jericho, whether it was Punk. Now it's like they've done an unbelievable job keeping him away from that title, because once he gets there, because he did get there once with Moxley and he did lose to Moxley, I don't think he's losing it the next time he gets there. I don't think there's any way in hell he's going to lose. So Liam, what do you think? You can add some on the main event if you want to, but who do you think's next in line to face Hangman?
Yeah, the more you mention it, the more Punk makes sense, because he was very coy too about his title plans in the Scrum. He mentioned like, oh, well, we'll see. But, I also don't know how many matches I have left in me. And if I'm not building towards a title match, then what am I really doing here? So I look at that and I may think something might go down on either this Dynamite or in the coming weeks. Double or Nothing is still almost 3 months away. So they have time, and we probably won't know for at least a month who the next person in line is. It also makes me wonder, Punk's been doing a lot of great stuff so far, but some of the greatest stuff of his career is his heel work. And when you have such a white meat babyface like Hangman and a guy with the potential to be such a dastardly heel like CM Punk, do you turn him? Like a big quote that he said in the Scrum was, "It's a lot easier to wrestle people I hate, and I find myself liking Hangman." So to me, when I hear a quote like that, I'm like, I don't really care about a CM Punk Hangman match if they're both babyfaces. If Punk is a heel, on the other hand, my anticipation grows exponentially. So I don't really know. Hangman too as champion, I thought the title run hasn't been too stellar. I enjoyed both Moxley and Omega's reign more. I think he's kind of right on that Jericho level. But it's really hard to have a successful babyface run with the title. It's so much easier to be a heel champion and be memorable.
It's always about the chase too. You know what I mean? The chase is always bigger than after you win it. Same thing happened with Omega in New Japan. Exactly. It's like he won it, and they're like, "Oh, he won it."
Yeah.
And what do we do now? Like he won it.
You want to have a meaningful title reign because of how long that chase was, but at the same time, you shouldn't force it and you shouldn't overstay your welcome. So. Yeah, who knows what's in store for like his future as champion, but I would likely think he's dropping it probably before All Out in August. I'd be surprised if he lasts that long. One thing I'll say about the match, though, the crowd interaction was awesome. The "Let's Go Adam chants, or I think I heard an Adam Forever at one point, and I thought it was dangerous to getting to that. I forget what pay-per-view. I think it was Extreme Rules. I want to say 2017, the Ziggler Rollins Iron Man match. When they counted down every minute, like they would do the Rumble countdown.
Yeah.
And it took the air out of the sail, and it was like, oh, the crowd has taken over. I thought it was going to get close to that, but they knew the perfect times to insert it and make it funny while also make it like appropriate to the story. I thought it was genius.
It was good. And there's so many, I feel like it might happen again because there's so many names that are so similar. There's Ethan Page, Hangman Page, Christian Cage, Brian Cage. It's like, it's pretty wild. But that is a really good point. Like I kind of am along the same way. Like maybe if All Out is MJF versus Hangman Page, maybe I could see that happening possibly. And that's hard. Like exactly what you said. And I did hear that he did get a little boot. Like Hangman got a little booed near the end. Like he was kind of like not overtly, but a little, which is wild.
Yeah, I will say on that front, it's also really hard when you have to wrestle Adam Cole.
And Cole is the most over dude ever.
My favorite modern wrestling match is Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, Takeover New York. And not just for the wrestling, but because of the masterful storytelling or not just the masterful storytelling, but the genuine input from both guys to make Johnny Gargano the babyface. Because he came out to a chorus of boos. Adam Cole was cheered like a madman. And you had to organically, over the next 40 minutes, however long the match was, make Johnny Gargano the babyface. Because we have to have a champion leave this match, somehow get people to boo Adam Cole. It worked in New York. Here, it's an AEW crowd. It's a little more difficult because they love their indie guys. And Adam Cole is just so crazy over, and it's hard not to cheer for him. But, yeah, it's an uphill battle whenever you have to go against them.
Yeah, it only came until like the end, and it's like the AEW crowds like know their job. You know what I mean? They like know what to do, and that's why I felt it kind of weird near the end that they started to boo him, because it was always like they freak out Adam Cole for the Adam Cole isms almost. You know, the entrance, the Adam Cole baby, the boom, everything like that, and they obviously love him, but they know they have to hate him too. They do play a good job. They have booed him doing certain things and things like that. It just came to a weird point, and I guess Adam or Hangman Page did make like a speech to the crowd after it went off air, and it was said that there was some boos there too, which is very interesting. I wonder how they're going to play into that, or if they're just going to completely ignore it. How they're going to play that, I guess maybe we'll see Wednesday. I don't know if it'll be on the show. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I am very interested to see how that goes, especially if it is against a CM Punk. Like, it's going to be very hard for them to like be in Hangman's corner over CM Punk unless he does some crazy heel turn, which I am so stoked. I will be so stoked to see heel CM Punk, but it's like almost like, do we need to right now? You know, I kind of felt like we were going to get there with Eddie Kingston because he kind of said some stuff that was pretty heelish, and people love Eddie Kingston, so that kind of made sense. But when the MJF stuff happened, it went the other way. You know what I mean? Like, it seemed like we were kind of getting the heel Punk, and then it went completely to the other way, where it's like, nope, he's still super big baby face. So very interested to see how they handle that. Zach, do you have any? What are your thoughts on the Hangman?
I looked up like kind of the most recent rankings, and it's interesting because some of the top people were Hobbs, Dante Martin, things like that. So there's no real clear-cut contender. So I could see us getting some of those matches, just getting Page a few more wins.
Matches, right?
Shine light on some of the people. But I don't know if you guys are regular watchers of Being the Elite, but I think they definitely were this most recent one where they brought the gear to the Bucks and, oh, you left your stuff. Oh, that's not ours. Are we going to get... We got Hangman shoving Alex Reynolds, and all that. So I'm almost wondering, hinting at Kenny coming back. Kenny's been gone for a while. The Bucks are splitting off from Cole because of Red Dragon. Do they try to bring Hangman back and we get Omega versus with there not being a clear-cut contender, and with Hangman getting booed, they can use that as the fuel of him maybe going back down that darker road and the Bucks bringing him back. Right. A lot of people were quick to point out the gear is maybe a reference to Pride or things like that until BTE, where
I was like, the same.
Yeah, I put zero thought into it being any sort of connection with the Bucks until that, and then I was like, oh,
yeah.
And I mean, when the Bucks came out and they let Hangman go after Cole, and they just did it all kind of was planted back when they gave him the nod of approval against Kenny.
Yeah.
Like, maybe they realized, hey, we fucked up with this.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're going to get any big feud for Page anytime soon. I think we're going to get the TV matches with some of the top contenders that we all know he's not going to drop it to.
Yeah.
Punk's a good shout, but I don't know. I don't know if they want to put the belt on a CM Punk and go down that rabbit hole of taking it off one of their guys to put it on. Like, it's tough. It's a lose-lose situation because they haven't built anybody up as a credible threat.
Yeah, and that is very, very tough. It is a very, very good point. And yeah, another BTE thing is it wasn't even the Bucks that were like Adam Cole walked out on the Bucks in BTE. It wasn't the other way around, which makes it like seem like, because I felt that whole story so interesting, because obviously he came back and he's like, oh yeah, you guys are my boys, but if you remember, the Bucks are the ones that kicked him out of Bullet Club
and now
killed him in BTE.
Let's also Jay White.
Exactly. That's what another thing I was going to add. I was like, he brings in Jay White, which obviously the Bucks aren't cool with Bullet Club, or so we think. We never really got that resolution. Like, is that going to come into play, or like maybe Hangman rejoins the Elite after Cole and Red Dragon probably go to Bullet Club? It's like they're going to need more people.
Now, yeah,
if they're going up against the Bullet Club. Like maybe like does God join the Elite or something? You know what I mean? They just got kicked out. Like that's crazy. Like the possibilities are endless with that side, and I am very interested to see how Hangman comes into play with that. Like, maybe we get Jay White versus Hangman. Like, sign me up. I'm down for that.
Yeah,
I just thought of that. Like if the Bullet Club stuff comes into play and he's involved and he kind of turns his back on the Dark Order, because like you said, he did push Alex, and they made that a big deal in BTE. He came to say what's up to him. Alex Reynolds walked right out. I know not everyone watched BTE. I go in waves of it. But today I did watch it because I was like, oh, this one's going to be good. It's the one after the pay-per-view. It's probably going to have some good stuff in it. And I was correct. It did. Some of the stuff in there is completely nonsensical and just kind of silly, but that's
everything
kind of what
with
BT.
Ryan Nemeth.
Yeah, that stuff is so weird. So strange. But good for you, dude. I guess I don't know. But yeah, like if they did something like that, I would be very interested in that. If they kind of take that kind of route with him talking with the Bucks, and maybe they face Dark Order too and stuff like that. Like, I'd be down for that. Like, they're great. Their chemistry is amazing together. And we saw like Hangman and Kenny as a tag team. I never thought I would see that happen, and they were unbelievable.
They don't
match
have
with them against
to
the Bucks
focus on the title. They don't. Every week doesn't have to be a title defense for
sure.
Hangman, but he needs to be on TV every week. Your champion needs to be on TV every week,
and that links with the whole story of everything from the beginning. It'd be a good way to bring that all together again, because that's what made his chase so meaningful, is how it played into everything else. But man, guys, thank you so much for joining me in this. This was an amazing time hanging with you guys.
Of course.
It's always amazing to chat AEW or wrestling with people. Zach, is there anything you want to plug before we get out of here? I know it's kind of weird. I usually have people in bands or that have their own podcasts.
Just support your local indie wrestling. Like that, some of the stuff I've gotten to see from companies like ESW out in Buffalo. I'll be working a match that's Buddy Matthews versus Trey Miguel. That's something I never thought I'd get to see, and I'm just like nonchalant about it. You have your people like out in Washington, 16-year-old Nick Wayne out at Defy.
Yeah.
You never know who you're going to see. We saw the Bucks kind of before they got big, a Daniel Garcia.
Right.
You never know what you're going to see. If you can spend $40 on going to see a movie and buying some popcorn, spend $10 on a local indie ticket. You never know.
It's fair. I did love going to those GCW shows. Those were amazing.
Make your way out to Buffalo. There's always room.
So far.
Yeah.
That's so far.
Ride out with Andy when he comes. Now that he's shooting for us, he's in Utica. Ride right on out with him.
Oh yeah, true. He does kind of live right down the road.
Yeah,
we'll see if we can make it happen.
We've kind of kidnapped him into our little cult of shooting, so
that's good. Yeah, support when it's an amazing sketch show.
Oh God, yes.
Where they do stop motion with action figures, and they made a wrestling federation. Look up Wrestling Entertainment Network on YouTube. That's actually the other dude who's they do commentary for it and everything. It's amazing. It's so
wonderful.
Much fun. And Justin Parker, shout out to Justin. I go over to his house and watch pay-per-views for every AEW pay-per-view. We've done it from the jump. It's like our tradition. And he's great. Andy's awesome too. And yeah, go support them. That's another good shout out.
Make your way out. We'd love to have you out there.
I'll have to do it. I haven't checked out much Buffalo stuff, and I know there's some good stuff out there. But Liam, please plug away, my friend.
Yeah, I got a couple things going on a weekly, daily basis for wrestling fans that are watching this, which is probably 95% of the key demo, as we like to joke about.
The demo god.
Yeah, if you guys are If you guys are on TikTok, follow at Wrestling Inc. on TikTok. I run that account, so I do all the daily wrestling news updates. We post clips from the Wrestling Inc. Daily, hosted by Nick Hausman over on WrestlingInc.com. And then I also host the Thursday night edition of the Wrestling Inc. podcast, which is kind of half wrestling news, half entertainment. We dive into topics, like Cody Rhodes' Pro Wrestling Future in one half, and then next thing you know, we're talking about the Batman, because it's fun to integrate the world of superheroes into the squared circle, because our fandoms do kind of clash every now and then, or mix together well. And speaking of the superhero world, my podcast under thedirect.com, simply titled The Direct Podcast. New episodes every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google. It's an easy download. It's a fun listen. We cover top news. We review the weekly shows when they're airing. And then we have fun draft segments, lists, discourses, all that good stuff. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd be willing to bet you would enjoy my personal stuff as well. And thank you, Sean, so much for
thank you very much
for reaching out, for having me on, because I love talking wrestling, and I talk superheroes like 75% of the time. Whenever I get the chance to chat 2+ hours of AEW, it's always a good time. So this was a lot of fun.
Yes, definitely check out the Direct Podcast. It is a very, very awesome pop culture nerd centric podcast, and I'm very happy to have both Zach, Brendan, who had to scoot out of here, and Liam on tonight's. It was a very, very dope conversation, and I hope to do many more in the future. Let's hope for that. But as always, guys, we'll be back next week. I'm planning a Batman spoiler discussion. I usually like to do them a little later so people can see it. I know some people take their time with these things. Most people don't. I've already seen it twice. But yes,
okay,
Sam
I get
might
it. I'll go see it this week.
Go see it, dude. Go see it. All right. It's amazing. It's good. It's long, but it's amazing. But I'm going to have a few people on. Sam might be making a rare podcast appearance to talk about it, because she also loved the movie. And yeah, the spoiler discussions for movies, I usually like to do live. So be on the lookout for an announcement for that. And until next time, see you later, nerds.